good, Veronica. You knew I was about to start. Very good timing. How's everything? Good, good, good. All right. So hi, my name is Derek. For those of you guys that are not familiar with me or Charter Real Estate School, speaking of which, I am the co-founder, owner, president, that guy, Charter Real Estate School. So today is a Zoom CE class. So for those of you that aren't familiar with taking the Zoom classes, the way that I take attendance is during the course of Tywan's presentation, at some point I will very rudely stop him and ask all of you to put your license number in the chat. That is how we'll take attendance, and that's how I also make sure that you're paying attention. If you fall asleep, shame on you. You also won't get credit. So keep paying attention. It's going to be a great class. It's going to be, this is a 7-hour class, right, Tywan?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. See, I couldn't even keep a straight face. I really tried. But yeah, it's a 4-hour class. And there'll be breaks in between at Tywan's discretion.
1 hour. I'm joking.
I was like, man. So as you can see, it's going to be interesting, right? We're going to keep it light. You know, no one's going to fall asleep. And if you do, that's your fault. So it's a 4-hour class. Tywan will be giving you guys breaks. But like I said, at some point later on, I will ask you for your license number. That will serve as your attendance. Tywan, Anthony is going to be your instructor for today. And he'll be, you know, giving you all the good information. I'll be manning the chat. Today's presentation is a webinar, so you can see and hear Veronica, Tywan, and I, but we cannot see or hear you guys. So the only way you can interact is through me. You can type things in the chat or the Q&A. I'll be keeping my eye on those, and again, throwing my hand up, stopping Tywan to ask your questions. Tywan does like it to be interactive, so anyone that does want to directly ask their question, you're certainly able to do that. All you need to do is raise your hand, which you're able to do using the functions at the bottom of your window there. If you raise your hand, I'll give you permission to speak, and you can ask your question directly. And if you really want to get on camera, I'll even let you put your video on too. So it's up to you how you want to interact. But you choose your own level of involvement. But that's the way the class is going to go. We're also joined by Veronica from Meadowbrook Financial, who was Meadowbrook was kind enough to sponsor this to help make this class happen for you guys. We'll be doing this weekly moving forward. So look forward to future emails from myself, from Tywan, from Meadowbrook about what else we're going to be doing for you guys to learn and grow over the course of the next few weeks. So during the first break, we'll hear from Veronica. But Veronica, I believe Tywan is going to keep it interactive with you as well. So hopefully you're in here for the long haul. Veronica's like, what? I gotta talk?
You guys are just good at putting me out there, right?
Yeah, there you go. That's what we do. That's what we do. And it's gonna be fun. You know, we're gonna keep it interesting. I think you enjoyed the last class we had together.
I really did.
Enjoyed it, yeah.
And so, I did it too well. Rajin actually just put me back. Like,
yeah, okay. Exactly. I only found out a couple hours ago, probably right after you did. So yeah, so that's how it goes. That's how we do it. But it's gonna be a great presentation. I'm going to let Tywan introduce himself, but again, feel free to put any questions you have in the chat or the Q&A. And if you want to speak, throw your hand up, and I'll give you the opportunity to do that as well. Thanks a lot, everybody, and have a good class.
Perfect, perfect. So I guess that's my cue, huh, Derek? All right. Well, thank you, Derek, for the introduction. It is great to be here. So I'm going to briefly introduce myself, who I am, and what I do. So again, my name is Tywan Anthony. I am currently a commercial property manager for a firm called RPAI, stands for Retail Properties of America. And what we do, we manage, develop, and own open air shopping malls and shopping centers throughout the United States. So approximately we have about 130 plus or less, give or take, open air shopping centers, right? So we're talking about, you know, most of the time, New York City, Brooklyn really doesn't have much open air shopping centers, but Queens, Long Island, going out that way, they have more of the open air shopping centers. Most of my portfolio is actually in Long Island. It stretches all the way from Coram all the way back to New Hyde Park. So I have tenants such as Target, Lowe's, Best Buy, you know, Home Depot, Five Guys, Chopped, which is a new tenant. I actually like their salad a lot. So those are some of the tenants that we manage. And in my day-to-day, it's all about everything, basically, right? So property manager, especially in my role, I manage the day-to-day of everything from leasing to lease negotiations to, hey, trash needs to go out, to, hey, I have a leak in my roof, to everything. And just giving a background about how I got to property management. And normally when I teach, I also teach at Baruch sometimes as well. And normally things are more interactive. So I like to see students. So normally I do a round, kind of like a round table, and ask each student their name and where they're from. But can't do that right now. So nonetheless, my background, I first started out in property management in the affordable housing arena. And we'll get back to the affordable housing arena as well. And I'll tell everybody this tidbit of advice. If you do want to get into property management, whether you go off into commercial or you go into luxury, start off in affordable housing. And we'll get into that about why a little bit later on. So I stayed in the affordable housing arena, kind of cut my teeth there for a little bit. And then after that, I went on to a firm called Rock, which was based in the Wall Street area, and I was a commercial property manager there. So we had a lot of medical facilities, offices, industrial stuff. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth. And from there, you know, I went to the Bronx, did some property management there, and bounced around a little bit to where I am now, which is at RPAI. And one thing I will say, every time that I made a move, it was the trajectory was up, right? Even going back further than that, I got started in real estate, period, when I was about 20 to 21 years old. And Derek has heard this story before. So when I was in the Midwest, in college is where I actually first got my first start into real estate. And this was in the investment portion, not so much in the property management portion, but you can say it was property management as well. So in the Midwest, when I was in college, I was a football, I was an athlete. So I played football there. I went to West Virginia and also played at Pittsburgh State. So at practice one day, after practice, a friend of mine said that his family had came into town and they purchased some property. So I asked, well, how did they do that? And he told me that that they went down to the courthouse and they were able to purchase property. So I was curious, obviously being a kid from New York, and you know, at that time, property values are always super high. So I was interested in how people that looked like me, how they were able to purchase property locally. So the next day I went down to the courthouse, and mind you, at that time I was 21-year-old guy, had my backwards jersey on and my braids and my fitted hat. So I went down to the courthouse at that time and I asked the clerk, hey, do you guys have property for sale? And she looked at me a little weird, and then she gave me this big book, this big thick book. So I asked her, what was this? Now, mind you, I'm a kid from Brooklyn, braids, fitted hat, didn't know what was going on. So she actually said, these are all the people who did not pay their taxes for the last 2 years. So tax deeds and tax liens are how I actually got into real estate. I kind of fell upon it. So from there, what I did at that time, we didn't have an iPhone, so I'm not gonna tell you how long ago it was, but didn't have an iPhone to go around to each property, so I had a handheld camera. And I took my camera to each property that was actually on the list, and I recorded each property because I knew that a month from then there would be what's called a tax lien auction. So after I did all my research with those properties, I gathered up the ones that I think that I wanted to own or the ones that I wanted to bid on. So during the day of the actual auction, so I go there, and that is where the magic happened. Now, mind you, I'm in the Midwest. You know, I'm in my early 20s. There's nobody else that looked like me that was there at that auction. Fast forward, to make a long story short, during that auction, I actually ended up with about 2 properties from that auction, and it was an issue of being comfortable, right? So when I got there, people were bidding, you know, they're bidding properties, and I was kind of scared, but eventually a property came up that I wanted, that I had seen, and I kind of raised my hand, so I'll take it, and he said, hey, you got it. I said, wow, really? And then somebody else bid, and then I bid higher, and I won it. So at that time, now I'm getting a little bit more comfortable, and I'm feeling good about things. So at the end of that tax lien auction, actually I had 2 properties. Actually, one of those properties I still have today, and I'll never get rid of it because it's the first property that I ever purchased. So at the end of that auction, I came up to the front, and the thing about the county that I bought the property in, they were a tax deed state, not a tax lien, and there's a big difference. So while both I think have their places with investors, And at the time, I didn't know what the world I was doing. I was just trying to own some property. So a tax lien state is you pay for the debt on the property, and there's a maturity date, right? So you pay for the lien, and the current owner, they still have 2-3 years, what's called the redemption period, to redeem that. Now, if they don't redeem it, then you own the debt for the property, and you have the right to foreclose on it. But a tax deed state, which is where I actually purchased the property, which is the county that I was in, as soon as you pay it, you own it. So at that time, they wrote me a deed for the property, and I actually owned that property. And I remember the time that when I got the paperwork, I went to the front, and I got the paperwork, and then driving out to that actual property, just being in front of the property that I actually owned at that age was was pretty amazing, and I felt really good, to be a kid from Brooklyn, to be in the Midwest, to actually own property. And the interesting thing enough, and something that we'll talk about in the class later on, the school that I was going to, the diversity officer, who actually looked him up, and he's still at that school. I think I'm gonna contact him. He's still there. He actually found out what I was doing through a couple of members of my football team, and he reached out to me. So what we did is the school would pay 6 months of rent for inner city kids or inner city college students that look like me from Detroit, from Chicago, from St. Louis. The school, they had a diversity program, and they would recruit inner city kids and inner city college kids to come to our school, and I would house them at my off-campus housing that I had. So for me, it was really great to be able to be a college student, have some money in my pocket to earn some money, play the sport that I love, and also be able to provide housing for folks that look like me as well. So that's just a little background, about how I got started in real estate. And even to this day, I still do. I still love investing in tax liens and tax deeds whenever I can. Obviously, the world is a little crazy right now with COVID, so I'm not able to travel back to the Midwest. But if you are interested in tax liens and tax deeds, you can email me. I'm pretty sure Derek will put my information. It's an interesting process. So let me know. Also, in addition to that, currently, I live in Bed-Stuy, so I'm on the community board, which is Community Board 3. So I chair the Economic Development Committee, and we oversee a lot of the small business stuff, SLA, which is a state liquor authority. So I do love to go out and go have a good time. So that's the perfect committee for me to kind of meet new business owners that are like myself in Bed-Stuy. If anybody knows anything about Bed-Stuy, it's a place that has really began to really shift throughout the last couple of years. So it's always an honor to serve on our community board. So in a nutshell, that's a little bit about me. Derek, is there anything else, or should I just get straight into the Veronica? Do you want to say anything?
I'll leave the
I'm
helm to
good.
you.
No, I'm actually good. I'm actually learning a lot. Just listening.
There you go. See, everybody learns at charter real estate school classes. Damn it. So yeah. So the helm is yours, Tywan. Do with it what you will.
Okay, perfect. So I will. All right. So I'm going to bring something up. Can everyone see me and what I'm doing here? Okay, perfect. So this is just the first slide. It's a quick presentation about what we'll be talking about. And again, anytime throughout the slide, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. I don't want to be the only one up here talking. I love questions, so I do want to make this into more of a conversation piece as opposed to just me talking. So please feel free to always chime in. So going to the first slide, as far as why is real estate so important in our society? And after this slide, we'll see how that ties into property management. So again, real estate is everything that we do, right? Real estate, we live in pieces of real estate, whether we own or whether we rent places of business, right? So right now throughout the economy, you see the ripple effects of the retail industry, which is the industry that I'm in. So it's always tough, especially when it comes to open air shopping centers and retail. It's always tough, but we go to places of business, and that is a piece of real estate. So whether you shop at American Eagle, or whether you go to Kmart, or whether you go to Walmart, that is real estate as well. All right. So, can you still see my presentation? Hold on. Go back to
No, it's showing the Zoom page.
Okay, not sure. Bring it up again. Okay, back in action. Is that good? Okay, perfect. Real estate is also, as far as schools and government buildings and so on, parks, you know, and community centers. These are all places that we congregate in. Schools, obviously, we know what's happening in schools and government buildings. Investments and making money. People use real estate to invest and make money, which is what I did when I was younger. And again, so this is why real estate is so important in our society, and being able to understand it along with financial literacy is key in this life in order to kind of do what you want to do, right? So, and we'll see later on how that ties into property management, all right? So going on, you have various types of real estate. You have single family homes, you have factory buildings, you have commercial malls, you have office buildings, you have raw land, you have apartment buildings. All of these are managed by some entity, and that entity hires someone to manage that. My favorite asset to manage are commercial, particularly shopping malls and shopping centers. And the reason why that is because when I was younger, I always would go to a shopping mall. Everyone knows Tanger outlets, right? So you would go to Tanger, you'll go to Nike, and you'll go to all the outlets. And you're like, wow, this is really cool. I'm having a lot of fun. I always, even growing up, even after I, purchased my first investment property in the Midwest, I always was fascinated about shopping malls and who owned them and who ran them in that aspect. So for me, commercial real estate is always a really interesting asset as far as management goes. And obviously, we all know that when it comes, especially for the real estate agents here, I'm pretty sure everybody has a real estate license here. But you make a lot of money when it comes to commercial deals, right? When you sign a commercial lease, and again, as a property manager, I see it all the time, which is important to understand the property management aspect and also the commercial aspect of real estate as well. I deal with commercial brokers and commercial agents all the time. And, if you signed a 10 to 15 year lease with Target, you're good for a long time, right? Because it's the aggregate amount. So whatever your percentage is, it's the aggregate amount, which is that 10 years, whatever that is, and then your commission. So commercial can be very lucrative. That's a part of the reason why it's always been my favorite. You have office buildings here, you have raw land, and you have apartment buildings. You also have mixed-use buildings also too. I'm going to refer to Bed-Stuy a lot because that's where I'm from and that's what I know. Along 14th Street and other places, I'm pretty sure Astoria and other places throughout the city, you have a lot of what's called mixed-use buildings where you'll have ground level retail or office, and then above that, you'll have apartment buildings. So that is something that's really special to New York City and to where we live. So it's important to understand that somebody manages that. And what I'll say is this, and in all honesty and truth, for everybody who is a licensed real estate agent, property management is the next progression. And here's what I mean by that. So you can increase your book of business and you can increase the money and you can increase your earning potential by understanding property management and being involved in property management. So the interesting thing about being a property manager is while there's no official license for it, there are certifications and designations that you can get, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. But imagine this: you have just sold someone, your client, you involved in a 20-unit sale of an apartment building, somewhere in Manhattan. Your business with that client, your relationship with that client does not have to die there. You can also say, hey, by the way, client, right? I'm also a property manager, and then that way now you can do what's called residual income, because depending on how big the unit is, how many units you have, can kind of depend on the monthly percentage that you charge them for managing that. And we'll talk about that. But just remember that the natural progression as a real estate agent for a lot of us is property management. And for me, I hold my broker's license now, and I used to be with a couple of firms. I used to be with Compass before, but I've learned that for me, I really love the property management aspect. And again, don't get me wrong. If somebody says, hey, Ty, I need you to sell my house, I'm going to do it, right? But for me, my industry and my really, as far as being interested, as far as real estate wise, it has always been property management. So, all right. So the economy, the real estate economy, let's face it, whenever something happens in the economy or whenever something happens in real estate, it's a trickle down effect. Real estate actually is a major indicator and a major driver of our economy, whether that's locally, whether that's semi-locally, or whether that's nationally as well, right? So we're always looking at um, mortgages. We're always looking at home prices, at new homes. Even here in New York City, we're always looking at the rental rate. And we have, us being in New York City, we have a firsthand experience as far as what the rental market and what the buyer's market is like, right? So just last year, and all you rental agents know this, 2019 was a huge punch in the gut for the real estate industry, right? So we're talking about a lot of the laws that happened. And even right now, and I'm not sure exactly where it is, I think they're still debating it in court as far as who's going to pay the broker fee, whether it's going to be the owner or whether it's going to be the renter, right? So we know that real estate is always, always, always at the top of the list when it comes to the economy. And the reason why is because real estate is a huge driver, right? So let's look here in Central Brooklyn, where I live in Bed-Stuy. There's not the average property. I think I was looking at a property a couple of months ago that I was interested in, and it was pretty beat up, so it would need work. And this property was retailing at market for 1.2, right? So we're talking about a huge, huge price tag. And that price tag, there's a lot of people that get paid from a real estate transaction, right? From the broker to the mortgage to the home inspector to the appraiser. There's so many different elements that goes into the real estate industry, and a lot of people get paid from it, even construction, right? So we're talking about jobs. So the one thing to always make note of is just that real estate and the economy, real estate is a big driver for our economy. People will try to see where the real estate market goes and speculate, but that's always tough to do. So just understanding the role that real estate plays in our local economy is very, very, very important. Right? Do we have any questions yet, Derek? Or
So far, so good. I don't hear any snoring, so we're good.
well, that's because everybody's on mute.
Exactly. Can I ask a question?
Of course you can. Thank you. We have a question.
No. Just from the financial aspect of it, in terms of this economy now and the old pandemic and all of that, how does it affect commercial real estate, commercial rental? Because I've heard it's really, really down. I mean,
great question. So I'll be honest. So I've seen a little bit of both, and here's what I mean by that. So I have a property up near Boston. It's a pretty large center, so we have about 30 tenants. Before then, and I'll just give you an example. So at the start of the pandemic, what happened, a lot of companies, they kind of didn't know what to do. So they would do workouts. In the middle, so when April came, tenants were saying, listen, I can't pay rent. So March, I think things shut down about mid-March, March 15th, March 15-ish. So a lot of the tenants, they already made their rental payment for the month anyway, right? But when April came, then tenants were saying, you know what, we can't pay rent. A lot of tenants came to me and said, listen, I'm not going to be able to pay rent. So what a lot of owners started to do are these workout agreements, meaning that they would either abate rent for extending the lease, right? So let's say somebody has a 5-year lease. We would say, you know what, Joe, at the barbershop, we will abate 3 months when you don't have to pay, but we want you to stay longer. We're going to extend your lease from 5 years to 6 years, right? And what that does is, for commercial real estate, it's all about the leases, because when you get loans on these properties, the lending institution is looking at the strength of your leases, right? So if you have, 10 tenants and, 10 units are occupied, and therefore some really strong national tenants, Nike, Five Guys, Target, that's a really strong portfolio. So for me, what I've seen is this. What we were doing is property managers were tasked to call a lot of their tenants and help them out. So even though you may not think about that when it comes to a lot of the larger scale owners, the Cushmans or the CBREs and the relateds, but it's smart business. So what property managers throughout the country were tasked with doing, pick up the phone and check on your tenant. Hey, tenant, Did you fill out for, did you fill out the PPP program loan? Are you getting that? Do you need assistance with doing that, right? And it's smart business, because if they do that, and I'm not, the PPP loan expert, but a good portion of that had to go to paying your employees and paying what's called rent, right? So whether tenants were doing that or not, that's what them getting the loan was contingent on. So, and even so, that was at the beginning. So that's what I seen. The first thing you had, property managers were tasked with calling their tenants, checking on them, making sure they're filling out the appropriate loans. The second thing is you were calling your tenants to fill out and kind of create these workout agreements. Okay, you can't pay now. We can defer these 2 months, and then we can add on 2 months to the end of your lease, right? Because no matter what, you still want to get that cash flow. You still need to get that money coming in. And a lot of the companies, like the company that I work for, we're REITs, we're real estate investment trusts. And understanding the financial aspect of that, you have to report to Wall Street. And we already know that our economy and our stock market is very fickle. If the market hears that, Related did not collect, they only collected 30% of their rent for the month of April, their stock price is going to plummet, right? So it's important that, as a property manager and in the retail space, you have to understand this stuff. So I will be honest, what I've seen personally, I've seen a lot of the small mom and pop shops doing okay. Here's what I mean by that. I had a guy who owns kind of like a aquarium. So he sells fishes and, lizards and turtles and things like that. He stayed open throughout the whole pandemic, did not miss a rental payment, stayed open throughout the whole pandemic, right? But then I've seen some of the larger scale tenants, some of the big national brands, as soon as April came, they were like, we can't handle it. We can't deal. What I think happened from my experience is that the pandemic kind of pushed some of the larger scale tenants that were already on unstable waters. It just pushed them over, right? Because retail was always taking a beating anyway from Amazon. So for example, I used to never order anything through Amazon. And then one time the wife was like, why don't you just use Amazon? I said, no. But now, I'm on Amazon 8 times a day. Hey, cool. And it comes to your front door, right? So retail is taking a beating. You had, my favorite place growing up, and I'm not going to tell you my age, but was Toys R Us, right? I used to love to go to Toys R Us and jumping on the balls and throw the footballs around the store. So places like that are now gone. You have Modell's. They just filed for bankruptcy. So all these places that we have grown to love and places that we've grown up with. But again, these are, I believe, institutions that were already on the border anyway. They were already suffering because anything that you can get from Modell's, basically you can get from Amazon. If you want to, I was looking up a Yankees jersey. Cool, right? While it's nice to have the experience to go into Modell's and get the jersey, but you know what? I'm in my robe, I'm in my slippers, I got my phone in front of me. Let me just order a Yankees jersey now and it'll be here tomorrow morning, right? So retail was already suffering because you have the big guys, you have the big firm like Amazon, and I think, I think Jeff Bezos is a quadrillionaire right now or something like that. But, that was already happening, right? So what's happening, what I believe, retail tenants, if you have these big spaces, so how do you replace a toy store? How do you replace a Modell's when 10,000, 15,000 square feet? People come to places for an experience. And yes, the pandemic has slowed the experience down, but people come specifically to places for an experience. So there's certain things that you can't Amazon, right? Derek has a nice fresh haircut. You can't Amazon that, right? You have to, somebody has to do that. Either you order your own clippers or you go, right?
Well, I will have to say that. I don't mean to cut you off, but I have to say, like, Amazon is coming for everybody. Like, have you been to the Amazon brick and mortar stores? They're amazing. You roll in, put what you want in your cart. You don't have to do anything. The cart gets scanned, you get charged, and you walk out. It's insane. It's an experience. It's crazy.
You're right, but here's the thing. So there are certain, and us as people, we biologically want to be around and need to be around other people, right? So while there are certain things that you can replace, a Yankees jersey, a Mets jersey, a fitted hat that you can order, a pair of sneakers, some clothes for the baby, you can order that stuff. But there's certain things that you cannot order. You cannot order a haircut. You can't order a massage, right? So there's certain things that people will need to go to, right? So what that means is landlords and owners and the retail industry, to answer your question, Veronica, the retail industry as a whole has to shift, and it has to get more creative about how they use their space, right?
That's
And
exactly what I was alluding to. You need, I'm seeing this where I'm looking at it, and there got to be some reinventing of how you guys do business to stay sustainable. Say you lose the big stores, you're probably zeroing on the mom and pops, but still there, you will just dwindle down. I mean, at some stage, so you got to find a way to reinvent. As an agent, what would you suggest? Of course, you're big, you're already huge. Say, I'm just coming in. You're huge, you're established, you're there, but say as an agent, new agent just coming in, of course, the targets and the ones you probably had those accounts or they're already taken. Where would you say to me, where do I start? What do I look for? Who do I just put my foot in the door to say, listen, this sounds interesting. I would love to do this, or a big part of my thing. How do I, start?
no, great question. So what I'll say is this, and here's thinking outside the box. So one thing that I didn't mention that I do, I also have a nonprofit called the New York Crusaders. And what we do, we're an athletic team. So we have an adult football component, but we also do community work, right? I love my community, so I'm always tied to my community. So I think it was last year, the year before last, a friend of mine said, hey, there was a church that had a big space, a big commercial space. Somebody moved out. He said, hey, I'm looking to move in. I'm like, well, what are you going to do there? So he said, you know what? Well, come by one day. All right. So like 2-3 weeks passed, and I decided to come by. I was like, hey, Joe, I'm outside. He said, hey, come. His name is actually Nate. He said, hey, Nate, I'm outside. So I go into the church. I'm like, what are you doing in here? So we go to the third floor of this church that was pretty much had nothing in it. And what he did is he signed a lease with the church. So a broker or a real estate agent had to do that. He created a soccer club and turfed out the third floor of a church and painted a mural in it, right? So now, mind you, so a new agent coming in, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? If mama and papa took you to church for the last 20 years, well, guess what? That's where some of your business is gonna start from, right? Because especially in some of these older, bigger churches, they have unused space, right? Churches are suffering too. When the economy suffers, churches suffer because most churches, right, they people tithe and people kind of put in the collection plate when it goes around. If Joe got laid off, Joe may be in church, he's praying, but he ain't putting nothing in that collection plate, right? So churches are in a predicament as well. So I would say as a brand new agent, look no further than the people in front of you. It's funny because my mentor always said, and I never understood what he meant. He said, listen, Ty, most people have all the things in their life that they need currently to be successful. You just have to connect the dots. And connecting the dots is sometimes the hardest thing to do because there could be a cousin or a good friend, and most of us don't even know what we're doing, right? Another mentor when I was at Compass used to always say, don't be the quiet real estate agent. Don't be the pocket agent. People should know what you do. Hey, by the way, I do real estate. I have a friend that I follow on Facebook, on Instagram, and every other day he puts out a funny meme and says, by the way, I do real estate, right? So I think it's important to answer your question, Veronica, a brand new agent coming in, I think the first thing to do that a lot of people fail to do is writing a business plan, right? It doesn't have to be something long, but you want to focus on what your market is, right? And grow it from there. So actually, I got a phone call from a cousin of mine who lives in Pennsylvania, and he sent me a mail. He sent me some mail. He just got into real estate. And it was very interesting what that agent did, and I've seen it in other, I normally see this tactic in network marketing, in network marketing tactics. Not a big fan of network marketing, but I do love the training that their folks undergo. I mean, it is the best marketing that you can experience.
Tenacity. They teach tenacity.
They teach, if there's a best, stronger word for tenacity, they teach that. You're right. So brand new agent, you want to look at the people that you have closest to you, the people that you have around you, and figure out, hey, you know what, I'm new into real estate, or I'm in real estate. So if you own something, if you're thinking about renting, if you think about selling, if you think about buying, here I am. And also carving out your market. So for me, and I'll just give an example, I was always big into my community. I go to community board meetings, I go to police council meetings, I go to all of that stuff. So looking at, whether you're in a sorority, I'm a new father within a, I have a son, he'll be one in the next couple days. And another real estate agent, I think he was with Brown Harris Stevens, he told me, he said that when he became a parent, his business exploded. And I was like, why? He was like, because now you have something in common with somebody else, right? Because, hey, you have a kid, I have a kid too. Hey, your kids go to school. Guess what? We go to the same school. By the way, I do real estate, right? So I think it's important that for brand new real estate agents is to take a minute, because there's a lot happening, right? You see this, you see that, you see this seminar, you see that webinar, you see this person making money or not making money. So I think it's important just to kind of evaluate your current surroundings and who you have in your network of people that you already know, and starting off there and leveraging that and kind of crafting your own way. So that answers it, Veronica?
Yes, that was very good, actually, very good. Just as I said.
But what I will say is about creativity, right? And what I mean by that, not to say that, not to tell everybody to go around, ask their pastor, hey, pastor, you got to need, vacant space. But I think it's important just to be on the lookout for things like that, where people may have real estate and not doing anything with it, and you can really kind of carve that. Again, for my friend who turfed out and made a soccer program on the third floor of a church, it blew my mind. It blew my mind, because I said, I wouldn't even thought of that. But a broker, a broker or agent, they brokered that deal and they got a commission from that. Right. So I think things like that are just phenomenal. And there's a lot of people doing a lot of amazing things and being very creative. So I think it's important to be creative. And with social media, I mean, we're on Zoom right now, right? So, a couple of years ago, I'm not sure if this would have been possible. Technology has just exploded. I remember when I was a kid and I was in elementary or middle school or wherever I was, I would get a girl's phone number and run home and sit by the phone waiting for them to call. Right now we have YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all these different things. So leveraging those tools are super important. Right. All right. So moving on. So just a couple real estate companies to be on the lookout for, especially as an agent and as you move into property management. The first one, we have Brookfield. Brookfield is pretty big. If you're into shopping malls and shopping centers, Brookfield is the go-to firm for that. You have Holstead. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about Holstead, the CBRE. They're very big into commercial assets, Cushman and Wakefield. Again, very big owners. They have brokerage. They have maintenance. They do a little bit of everything. You have Douglas Elliman. You have Compass. One thing I will say is this. When I started, and here's what I did, when I first got my real estate license, while I wanted to be a broker or agent full time, things were tough for me, right? So I still had to pay rent, still had to, go out, still had to live life. So what I did sales part time, and I became a property manager full time. And I was able to start out with a listing or two, and got my feet wet, until I said, you know what, I really, really, really like property management. I started to focus on property management. Contingent on what firm you go to, some may let you do part-time work, some may not. But then again, you all as real estate agents, you already have the clientele there already. You really do. If you sold a property, if you sold a multifamily in Bed-Stuy for someone, and now they have a multifamily, they need to rent that out, so that's more residual income. But you can also say, hey, listen, I can manage this for you, and you can jump headfirst into the property management business with very little overhead, right? With very little expenses. All you need is this. You just need to be smart about what you do. Maybe partner with someone. So it's important to do that. Going on to more, you have NHS Brooklyn, you have MBD, you have Jonathan Rose. So one thing I will say too, also New York City is a big affordable state, affordable city. And one thing I will say, one advice that I like to give property managers, especially property managers that's jumping into the industry, understand and learn affordable housing. understand the mechanism that goes into it, because it is such a big industry here. And unfortunately, we have, you know, this much of units, and we have this many people that wants to live in New York City. So understanding the players in affordable housing, you know, in that sector will be monumental to your career. And of course, we have Related. You know what I'll say about Related. Related doesn't live in everything. They're probably pretty much one of the biggest developers in the world. They have the Hudson Yards. Not sure if anybody went to the Hudson Yards yet, but I went there, you know, before the pandemic, and wow, they really have built a city within a city. You know, and after the pandemic is over, even now, maybe you know, you just want to take a walk down to Hudson Yards. I would suggest doing it and going to check it out. It's amazing. It's a multi-billion-dollar project. So they literally built a city within a city, and Related has been around for a long time. So these are some of the, you know, these real estate companies. These are some of the major players here in the city, and obviously there's a lot more, but these are just some of the major players here in the city as well. So, and what I'll say about this, I made some edits. So NHS, you know, Neighborhood Housing Services in Brooklyn, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. But I want everybody.
One in every borough, by the way. Every borough's got an NHS.
Say that again.
There's one in every borough, which I think is awesome.
Okay,
you know, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Derek. Thank you for that. He's like, I see Brooklyn. Queens got one too. I get it.
Yeah, Queens has one.
Queens, yeah. So you know, again, these nonprofits, you know, play a major role in our city, and I would suggest real estate agents. It's all about developing relationships. Develop your relationship with these nonprofits, because business will come to you when you least expect it, and in times and in places that you don't even expect it from. MBD, Mid Bronx Desperados, they're a firm that operates in the Bronx, and they're a nonprofit, and they provide affordable housing for, you know, people in low income areas. And you know, and I'm not going to get too philosophical, but that's just me. I'm really big into my community, and I believe that while we're here, whether we're black, brown, yellow, or green, we have to be impactful. We have to help each other out. So if somebody is less fortunate and we can provide housing for them in a big institutional way or just in a regular way, I believe that it's upon us to actually do that. So these are just some companies, some real estate companies that are big. And yes, Derek, NHS, they have first-time home buyer, you know, grants, but they also have seminars. So as a real estate agent, one thing that I used to do before when I first got into the business, I used to sign up and go to all of the seminars, to all of the first-time home buyer seminars, and I never used to tell them that I was an agent. I'm not suggesting that, but I used to go and I used to try to get clients from there, because you know that these people are ready to buy. So I used to raise my hand and ask all the questions. They're like, who's this guy? I was asking all these questions. And then at the end of it, like, they have a networking hour where you can drink and kind of like talk to the presenters. I used to give out my card. By the way, I heard you're looking to buy. You can let me know. So, but just being out there and going to some of these seminars, you really have, you know, once you get to know people and people know what it is that you do, you know, just even yesterday, I had a friend contact me via Facebook, and he says, "Hey Ty, I'm looking to rent out my two bedroom apartment in Bed-Stuy." You know, and I'm a realist, so I said, you know what, I don't really do residential any longer. So sorry. He says, well, hey, can you refer me to somebody? So I do a lot of referrals. So even when I have a listing now, and what I do, I tell people that I partner with, I said, you know, I tell them, listen, I'll get the listing. You're going to do all the work. I said, this is 50-50. I bring in the listing and you do it, and we'll split the commission, but it's all you, right? So, you know, and that's how I work my relationship, and people are fine with that. And most of the time I like to give some of those listings to people who are newer into the real estate industry, because I know how hard it is. And I know sometimes you get with a firm and you kind of see, well, the main broker is giving listings to this one, and I can't really get my feet wet. So I know how tough it is. And New York City is super competitive. It seems like everybody has a license. The guy in the bodega has one. The guy, the shoe shine guy who's shining his shoes at Grand Central. So yeah, I got my real estate license too, right? So it's a very competitive industry. So it's important to develop those relationships. So that's just something that I do. Anytime that I get a listing, I rarely ever market it myself. I'll always partner with someone, and then we'll kind of co-list it together. So I'll tell the client, hey, listen, this is who I work with, and they don't care as long as they know that I'm part of the listing. They really don't care, as long as it gets done. So
just to say, it's interesting that you said several things. It's interesting that you say you would partner with another agent. I'm a mortgage person. I've seen deals just like really become difficult because I pre-approve somebody and the agent, they see a house and the agent don't want to share the commission to them.
exactly.
I'm like, half a loaf is better than no bread. Of course, that's me. That's me. I mean,
Exactly.
I would say that. But going back to something you mentioned earlier regarding you being out there and that nonprofit. I know exactly what you're talking about because Derek would have told you. I used to be at NACA, and I'm sure you might have heard of.
Yes.
And I used to be their person for the New York area because I used to live in Brooklyn at the time. So I used to do
Brooklyn in the house.
huge seminars. I mean, seriously. 200 or 300 people, and I used to see agents come. NACA have their agents, and I used to be becoming not pretend, like Tywan says. Oh, we're just here to sign up for the seminars, and they're like, if the NACA thing don't work for you, and it really works. I'm serious because anybody who knows NACA knows NACA not for everybody. As a matter of fact, in the mortgage industry, NACA has been my main source of referral because I used to do workshops with hundreds of people. So that's a really good avenue for not just agents, but mortgage. Even on the mortgage side, I Rajin will tell you, I literally have a straight line from NACA, and I left NACA probably 5 years ago. And people just pick, Veronica, I remember you from doing a seminar because I used to do the biggest in New York, biggest seminar in Brooklyn, all the churches, Queens, anywhere, the Bronx. I used to be their spokesperson. That actually really, really works. NHS used to be at our seminars too, because we used to partner with NHS. So I'm kind of familiar with their program and how we used to combine. So that point you made is very, very valid, being out there. And, we sometimes look at very big companies, the very big areas, but find a little nonprofit, you'd be surprised to know how you could make serious inroads just by yourself with organizations like those.
Yeah, you're right. Also, too, Veronica, too, and I think it's this. So I have a real estate agent that I have, that I took the brokers class with, and she's at a firm, and she's like my little sister. So one thing I'm trying to do with her is you can also consult, right? So a lot of times these nonprofits, they and I'll just give a tidbit for folks because I'm actually going through the same process right now as we speak. If you're a real estate agent and you have a particular expertise, and you don't have to be a super big expert. A lot of what happens, just so everybody knows, the way nonprofits get money, they fill out these grants, right? Or they fill out contracts. So for example, the Department of Youth Services, I'm just giving just a broad example, they'll say, here's a grant coming from the Department of Youth to educate young adults from the ages of 18 to 24 in Brownsville, right? So a nonprofit, they will look at that and they'll say, hey, this grant opportunity looks like something for us. Most of the time, they may not have the in-house people to do that themselves. So what they will do, they will go out and they will contract with someone. So let's say it's a real estate opportunity. They will contract with a real estate agent to help do this work. Now, what you've done, you've secured however long that let's say it's a 3-year contract and you get paid monthly. Now what you've done, you secured your financial security for 3 years every month, right? And in addition, you're building relationships. And I'll say this, nothing else matters in this world. You can be the best at whatever it is that you can be the best at, it is that you do. If you do not have people skills and if you cannot connect with people, it doesn't mean anything. People don't do business just because somebody's particularly the best at what they do. They do business with people that they like. You know what? I know Joe isn't the best, but you know what, man, Joe is the man. I like Joe. Come on, Joe. We're gonna work together, right? So it's important to build those relationships. And if you're a real estate agent, it's imperative, like you just said, Veronica, to have those relationships with nonprofits. because they are always looking. So for example, you know, I'm not going to give the name, but right now, well, we're almost at the end of census. But when the census work started, New York State gave out a couple hundred, or I'll just do it like $20 million to get Black and brown people to sign the census, right? And what they did, that money goes to nonprofit organizations. So people who are entrepreneurial, they would get with those nonprofits and they would work on a contractual basis, whether they have to put on a certain amount of seminars or do some kind of virtual learnings and just inform the community about why it's important to fill out the census. They do the same thing. I've seen so many real estate I've seen so many real estate opportunities come through the pipeline. So it's important to develop these relationships with the NHSs, with the MBDs, and with these other nonprofit organizations, right? Because they're always getting opportunities. And what I'll say is this. This is the tidbit. And Veronica, you got me going now, right? So what I'll say is this. While nothing is inflation proof, I would, you know, in times that when the economy gets better, I think unemployment is at 11 to 12% right now, somewhere around there. During the Great Depression, employment was at 24, 22%. So we're halfway there. What happens when the economy starts to get bad? The government says we need to do something. So they will put out opportunities for people who are in a position to kind of lead, to do just that, to lead. So if you're a nonprofit, and the government will put out, especially New York City is big on that. They have so many opportunities. They will put out these opportunities and say, hey, we need a certified nonprofit to come and give financial literacy to teach young adults about credit, right? You know, whether it's we need, you know, a qualified nonprofit or qualified person or entity to teach, you know, low income communities about the importance of housing, stuff like that, right? So it's important. So my suggestion, even as a real estate agent, you can put yourself in a position, whether you form a nonprofit yourself as a real estate agent, or, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, or whether you partner up with a nonprofit, you know, and they know who you are. So if you're a rental expert and you know the Brooklyn market, you know the Queens market, you know what rent should be, you kind of have a good idea of where rents will be. A nonprofit loves that stuff because a lot of the times they do not have the people in-house to do it. And you come along, you will look like a hero or shero if you can provide that valuable information for them to lock in that grant. And they'll look at you like, wow, you're amazing. We're sticking with you for a long time. And you just solidified a partnership. So as a, you know, again, Veronica, you said it, not only with just spaces, we have to be creative. Like this economy, you gotta be creative. You can't just go with the traditional ways of you know. So for example, when I first got into real estate, they said, well, you gotta take your business card and go door knocking. I did it in Best Time. I got cussed out so many times, it wasn't even funny, right? So you just gotta be creative about what it is that you do, especially if you're a real estate agent. And I remember after like 3 days, I came and I looked at my wife, I said, yeah, I'm done with door knocking. Some lady cursed me, right? But we just gotta be creative about what we do. And now that we are in the economy that we're in, you know, nonprofits, you know, just reaching out to churches and just community boards and police council meetings. You just have to be creative about the places that you go.
Yeah, that's very good. And to add to what you say, oh, people liking you, and somebody said on the chat, trust, that's very important. When I used to do these huge workshops, there was no way I could remember everybody.
Of course.
But I would do. It was just impossible. But you know what? You can tell these people that they were like, Veronica, you remembered me. I asked you this question. I'm like, yeah, you did. Mm-hmm. So over time, and I think I've seen it, agents or people who interact with the public over time have to develop something like this. I would say, you were the lady with the baby, or if you can find somebody that you can make that connection to immediately, something they like you, as you say, then something, it goes into trust. Oh, she remember me. I was the one who walked in with a stroller at the workshop. You find for you, and it develop connection, no matter what you're doing with people. Real estate, mortgages, people like to know you can connect with them. I used to be in Brooklyn. I know the 90s. I passed through there. They like that. I mean, even that minuscule kind of connection. You don't just jump out and say, listen, me, I am an agent or I'm a mortgage person. I can get you a loan. That's not usually, at least for me, that's not my first line. There is something else that they connect with you. And some days they're like, oh, Veronica, you remember me? I'm like, yeah. And sometimes it's like a minute or two into the conversation. I'm like, oh, that was that, Karen. Debbie, I really didn't off the bat, but the minute I said, oh, Debbie, it came up on my phone. You remembered me because I saved your name as Debbie. So I'm like, hi, Debbie. You're like, Veronica, didn't know you would have remembered me. I really did. At that time, but you have to develop, as you say, Tywan, people's skill. It's so important. Not only real estate and mortgages, people will come back to you. You'd be surprised to know.
I agree. One thing I'll say that I learned actually within the last couple of years, and I'll say the best thing. This is one of the best people skills that I've learned. And it's funny because my grandmother used to hit me in back of the head every time because I didn't do it. She would say, "Boy, you listening, right?" And that's the thing. Most of the time when we talk to each other, we're not listening. And it's funny. And I talk to people, and you know, I do it with like family and friends. So if you're getting into kind of a back and forth with somebody, whether it's an argument or whether it's a debate, sometimes, you know, you'd be like, did you listen to anything that I just said? Most of the time, no, right? Because most people are just thinking what they're going to say next. So they're not listening to you, right? So the best skill that you can develop is to do this. When somebody's talking, is to really listen intently, because then you can give them feedback. And when you develop that skill, and it takes time to practice, right? Because we live in the information age and everything is so fast. Facebook, Twitter, everything is so fast. We're used to processing information so quick, and we're used to talking quick. But when you go to networking events, you know, if somebody says, yeah, I just had my birthday the other day. But so what I do for networking events, I carry a pen. I have my business card. So when somebody gives me their card, I'll write on the back something important. They just said that they came back from vacation, right? That they just got married, that they just had a birthday. And what I do, I can't possibly remember all of that. I refuse to, I'm not that smart. I have what's called a CRM, which everybody, every attendee, there are 22 attendees. If you're a real estate agent and you do not have a CRM, you are doing yourself a huge injustice. I don't even know how you even function if you don't have a CRM. So when I go back to my house, when I go back home, I dump all that information into a CRM so I won't remember. So if they said that their son just had a birthday, if I follow up in 2 weeks, when I pick up the phone, hey, Joe, how you doing? We met last week. Hey, how'd your son's birthday go? And now they're like, what? This dude remembered my son's birthday after 5-minute conversation. Now they're like, yo, this guy's a man. Cool, let's do business, right? But, you know, again, and those are just small things to win people over. And you're not, but you still have to be authentic. You have to authentically care. So you don't do it just in the sense of trying to get business, but you know, when you're asking, hey, how's your son's birthday? They're like, wow, thanks for remembering. And the reason why I know it works because somebody did it to me. And I was like, I told that guy, he remembered, right? And to this day, to me, he is like God in my eyes, right? So it always works. So that's why those CRMs are so important, because real estate is a people-based business, right? In a relationship-based business. So the stronger you can make those relationships, the better. And remembering if someone got married, or remembering if, you know, someone just had a son or a daughter, or someone graduated, that stuff goes a long way. And something that goes a long way too, this was a financial guy. He wanted me to, you know, do life insurance with them. It's when I bought the house. I was like, hey, you have a house, you have a family, you should do life insurance. I'm like, yeah. But he actually sent, and I don't even know how we got my address, but he actually sent a handwritten letter to my home just checking on me. I said, you know what? That is something you don't see. Most people will do what? Hit me in a DM, right? That's cool, but everybody does that, right? But this guy actually hand wrote a letter and mailed it to me, and I still keep it. And ever since then, I was like, you know what? You got my business. Because it showed that whether he gave a damn or not, for somebody to sit there and write a handwritten letter, that means that they cared. I'm pretty sure he didn't write it. He probably had a machine that prints it out. But nonetheless, it's a thought that matters. So all those little things really go a long way. And again, and I'll just say for everybody on here, if you do not have a CRM, get one. It is impossible for you to remember everybody that you meet in every location, but you let the CRM do that. What and there are plenty, but I use Pipedrive, right? Not to say, I'm not saying that Pipedrive is any better than anything else, but Pipedrive is what I first learned, and it's about 20 bucks a month or something like that. You can use, I think they have like Salesforce and they have others. Use whatever CRM you want. They have free ones, but whatever you do, make sure you get a CRM, because you are leaving so much money on the table because you can't remember everything and everybody. Put it into the CRM, forget it, and clear your mind, and you let technology remind you whenever you need to be reminded. Just a tidbit. All right, so going on. So there's an interesting portion. Exploring various careers in real estate. And again, we'll talk a little bit more after this slide. We'll get into the property management and stuff, but you have different types of jobs within real estate, right? So most people, when you say, hey, I do real estate, they will automatically think that you're an agent or you're a broker. But even when you're, I would say this, that entry into the real estate industry is getting your real estate salesperson's license, right? That's just like anything. So if you want to be a race car, a NASCAR driver, I'm pretty sure all those guys, they at least have a basic license, right? So same thing here in real estate. So you have people that do construction, and construction is a major part of what we do. Is a major part of the industry and the economy. You have a mortgage broker or a banker and real estate finance, right? Veronica could tell you about that. Veronica, do you want to just say a tidbit about your industry a little bit and kind of the nuances there a little bit, since
okay, a little bit.
yeah, just a little. You're not much.
You could have gone on forever. I was happy. Anyway, I was enjoying myself. Oh, of course, we have to work with agents. It's the first thing I do when I meet an agent, or I say to them, listen, we're a team. That's the first thing I have to say. The minute we don't have that impression of each other, we're gonna have challenges on just working together. If we even have a deal together, we have to realize that we're a team and we're on the same side. Not only are we a team, we're on the same side, because we can be teams on different sides. So we have to be on the same side most of the time. And it's funny, Tywan says that, because a lot of times I've heard people say to me, you do real estate, and I'm like, no, I do mortgages. And I'm sure people cross it sometimes. And I have to, I was so upset one day. I said, you're making me lose business because you keep telling me I'm real estate. You get my license. Anyway, that being said, my first words to my agents I work with is that we are a team. And that being said, we lay the foundation. We have to realize we're a team, because I've had agents who have to reach out to me when the clients get difficult. Because normally, before I get to even clients being difficult, the first thing what I find with and I said to new agents, is that clients are not, and this sounds bad, but they usually don't tell you the whole truth. They tell you half the truth, but by the time they get to the mortgage person, they almost have to tell the truth. I remember years ago, I had an agent very excited, called me, Veronica, you have to pre-approve this client. She was new in the business. She met this wonderful client, and he's a bus driver. No, she thought he was with NT, and I did too. She was like, Veronica, I'm ready to look houses for him. He's sending me houses, and we were happy. So by the time she gave me his number, I called him. I said, you're a bus driver, yeah. You know what bus he drive? The yellow bus, the school bus. And I'm not doubting it. What I'm saying is that this perception that they give to agent a lot of the times is just so wrong. By the time they get to the mortgage person, the truth will come out. So she was happy. She was beginning to look at houses in a different category in terms of financing. And when he came to me, he was a school bus driver. That's like night and day. That's like cheese and chalk in terms of income. So I had to say to her, he can't. Don't take him out. Don't show him those houses. Don't get involved that way, because he cannot afford to get houses in that direction. And I keep saying that, and it comes back to the point we're making, is that we have to work together. I have agents who say to me, this client said she has the money. When the bank says, where is the money? The money that told the agent, it's just not there. So I'm like, they have to tell the mortgage person the truth. And it's not like they deliberately want to lie to you to agents for no particular reason. They either don't divulge the information, they do divulge all the information, or they just tell, sometimes they just outright, blatantly lie. You know, so, and I've seen it happen to agent, and it becomes frustrating because you're there thinking you have a good deal, you have a good client, it's gonna be worth it. And a lot of times it's a mortgage person who have to check, put a check into it and call the agent and say, listen, me, don't waste your time, or look in another direction, or I'm gonna have to talk to this person about a co-signer or something else, because they usually don't divulge a lot of the information for some reason. So I say to clients, listen, I say to agents that I work with, listen with what any client tell you with a grain of salt. Because by the time it reaches the mortgage person, it changes. There's a little caveat, there's a little deviation, there's a little diversion. There's something going on that wasn't said to the agent up front. And it's not, I'm not, after a while, I'm like, you know what? Tell the client to call me. Don't just listen to what they say. Just tell them to call me. And then I will go back and relay the information to my agents and say, listen, me, you're in a commission business. I'm not going to let you waste your time. This is not going in the direction the client told you. Because they're the first one who would go online and send even houses to the agents and say, these are the houses I like. I'm like, no. So that's one aspect of I come across, and Roger will tell you a little firm, a little, not because I want to, but I understand the job of an agent because I couldn't do it. The very first license I got when I came from Jamaica was a real estate agent. And the first house, and this is no joke, guys, the first house I look at, the agent was looking at my face, and my face was like, do they seriously? And I didn't even realize how serious I just killed a deal, even if there was a deal, because I am looking, and I pray agents don't make this mistake, like I have to like the house, not realizing I don't have to like the house. So I'm walking in this house and my face went like this. And my client is looking at me like, what's wrong? So I learned the hard way. So within 3 months, I kid you not, I just never I had my license, just never used it. I've never used that license. And that was many, many years ago. So I really respect you guys, really respect the job you do, because I could not do it. I did not last 3 months late. It was from November to December. January, I was right into mortgages. I did not last just because of that. So every time I have agents come to me, I say, listen, I'll do my best. I understand the business. I have your back. Just let me know where we want to go. Seriously, that's the level of respect I have for people who do this kind of job. So that being said, again, it's a symbiotic relationship. We look for each other. In the same breath that my clients don't say to me, I don't ever divert or deviate from the agents who take business to me. You take business to me, I take business to you. I mean, that's how it is. We have to rely on each other to do well in this business. And once anybody will tell Meadowbrook or Rajan or our team, once the deal comes to us, we look at it as, apart from us doing a job of getting clients into a home, not just a house, we look at it as getting them into a home. We still look at an agent advancing their career, doing well, because it makes sense when one do well, all of us do well. When somebody can refer Meadowbrook or refer Tywan or Derek or whatever business you in, somebody would say, that's an agent, that's an organization that I can put my reputation on the line, because very, very important in this business. You can go on the website and see just real estate or mortgages, and see some reviews, you're like cringe. So it's very important that I can say, I know Derek, or I've worked with Mr. All and he's very good at what he does. You know, so your reputation not extends beyond just being an agent. It extends beyond it, because you're going to put somebody on the line or sending somebody to Meadowbrook or I'm going to put somebody on the line, just sending somebody over to you guys. So we all have to hold each other up. And I've said to people, you are as good as our weakest link, or who we refer to. Because you don't want somebody to come back to you, refer Tywan to me, and he didn't even return my call. Sometimes, and that's another thing, as a mortgage person, as a real estate agent, I say to them, if I send somebody to you, even if you can't help them, return the call. Sometimes agents, they're not ready. I can't deal with them. No, you don't return the call. You don't return the call. And sometimes you're not ready now, but they have your number. They have the connection 2 years down the road, 4 years down the road, they'll be calling you up. Because the connection was made. It's not about them being ready now. And that's a lot of mistake, again, mortgage persons and agents make. If the client is not ready, like ready now, they're done. The connection is almost severed. So what I do, I categorize the connection I make. Some will be ready now. Some was ready from last year or yesterday. Some will even be ready. You know, people you've known for 5 years now, they're trying to get the money together and they're genuinely doing it. They have obstacles. They have to live lives. So, you know, I do that as a mortgage person. I say, listen, these are my ready now. These are my possibilities. These are my 5 year, my 2 year. If you don't do that, your longevity in the business will be cut short, because you eliminate a total set of people that could have been ready or would be ready or would have you in their contact. You said no, they weren't ready. So you're looking short term, only to know that these people will be ready maybe 2 or 3 years down the road.
I would also throw in there, just really quick, and I don't mean to cut you off, but like to Tywan's point, for those of you that aren't familiar with CRMs, a CRM will help you with that. So you can categorize your people, you know who to deal with, how to prioritize, but you don't forget people. People don't fall by the wayside. So definitely a CRM is going to help you with that, identifying your potential clients and keeping that pipeline going. At the same
Keeping that, you say the operative word, Derek, keeping your pipeline going. Because that's a fatal mistake a lot of new agents or a lot of agents make. If you're not exactly ready and you don't have their CRM in place, they're like, over time, they just like lose. And that business goes somewhere else. That business definitely goes somewhere else. So you have to keep that CRM going. Know your business. Another thing I'm going to talk about is knowing your business. No, because we're in the age of Google. You can tell somebody something and they just go right behind you and Google and call you back. Somebody brave enough to call you back and say, Veronica, you told me that, but I Googled it, or it's not that.
Listen, Veronica, people Google each other. I have a cousin that whenever she goes out on a date, she's Googling the guy. I'm like, don't Google him. Date him first. See what he's gonna do.
Yeah, I'm telling you. So back
man, I do with everybody and everything, man. You gotta do it.
I'm telling you. So I'll be talking to somebody, and the first thing I say to them, I know you can Google. I know you're gonna Google. You have to let them go. Maybe that's the turn, because now they listen to you. I literally tell them, I know you can Google it. But it's very important, because doing a lot of workshops, back to NAC again, I used to do tons of workshops. And there is no way you're not going to know what's going through 400 people's minds. And I'm there looking like, what is the next question somebody's going to ask me? And invariably, somebody's going to ask you something not very, you know what I mean, at the workshop. And you have to have an answer. And if you don't, you should be able to say, listen, I don't have that question now, the answer to that question now. But if you could call me, or if you know something, it's best that you misinform clients or potential clients, because they will go somewhere and get the truth, or they will go somewhere and try to find the truth. Be honest. Let them, and somebody had said on the chat, trust. Once they find out you're honest, they will trust you. I remember years ago, I was doing a workshop in Queens, real big workshop. And if you know NACA, they give you everything. 3 days, no down payment, no closing cost, no everything. And I'm there touting the program and everything. And a lady put up her hand and said to me, Veronica, not no down payment, no closing costs, and we get our house and everything. Who will be paying the mortgage? You'll not be paying the mortgage as well. I'm like, you laughed? The whole workshop burst out laughing. I'm like, no, you gotta be kidding me. Ma'am, you have the house. But I was like, no, ma'am. But you know what? Since NACA give you no down payment, no closing costs, no everything, it's a natural progression to think that they would pay your mortgage. But no, you will be paying that mortgage. I mean, I say that to say I was like befuddled how somebody could come up with you getting all of that and living in the house and want NACA to pay the mortgage as well. So it's all about preparing yourselves. Yes, that's exactly it. Neighborhood Assistance Corporation. It's about clients and agents preparing themselves for things like these. The weird things in our mind, it's weird, but in that person's head, it's like natural. I should think that way. Why wouldn't you think I should buy a house in Far Rockaway, or what's wrong? So when they come up with the weirdest things, I would say, why? Just tell me why. And once I know your why, I'll be able to facilitate you. So that's the route I've taken as a mortgage person. I listen, as Tywan would say, you listen, to what is going on in their head. Because we do this all day long, so we could flip through questions, we even have the answers to our own questions because we do that all day long. But what I've learned to do as a mortgage person is listen to the person and try to get a feel of what they want and why they want it. Instead of coming in, why would you want to live in Far Rockaway? Why would you go there? Tell me why you want to do what you want to do. Then we try to facilitate them on that end. It makes our process much easier if we just listen and try. So as a mortgage person, again, the paperwork is tedious because I would usually say you guys' work is easy, it's pretty easy because the paperwork is a nightmare. Prior to, Derek.
It's simple. It's not easy.
It's not easy. I've had that debate all along, but seriously though, it's not. I know, I'm just joking. But prior to Wall Street crash, I would say that yes, and the Dodd-Frank and everything else, I would say, yes, it wasn't that bad. But I've had clients, it has gotten so hard that I've had clients say to me, Veronica, the only thing you have not asked me for is my blood type. And I really feel because it's the truth. Because I've asked that. Because people lead complicated lives without knowing. Like, yeah, you say, give me your bank account, and they have 7. I say, why would you have 7? Because Veronica, I pay my bills through this one. I have MCU because I don't want to go there.
MCU was hard to get to. I have MCU too.
Yeah, I know. So I'm like, why would you have like 6, 7 bank statements? No, Veronica, I have this one because this is the one I pay my bills through. I have MCU because it's deducted from my job. I have Capital One or TD Bank because it's far and I can't go there every minute. And they keep. It goes on, and I'm like, you don't know what you just did to my life, but you still have to accommodate that. It's just crazy. So we keep doing it, and we keep learning. Even me, I keep learning. Every client is different. I don't put everybody in the same box. That's something we try not to do as mortgage person because we look at everybody individually. This is what this person wants. This is what, and we try the best we can to facilitate them and, do what we can. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you. No, thank you for that. That was very detailed. Thank you, Brian. And that, is the mortgage banker. That was a really good overview as far as what you're dealing with and the people you see and the issues that you come encounter with. So thank you for that. So next on the list is we have a real estate entrepreneur. So with that, I know everybody everybody watches HDTV and they see flip this house and everybody thinks that they can flip a property in under an hour and, the show starts, at 5 and then they buy it. And then next thing you know, at 5:50, they sold the property for, a $50,000 profit. I'm going to tell you something. It ain't that easy, right? It never is really not. I've done it before and lost money, made money. It is not, it's not that easy. And right now, it's interesting that there's this big movement as far as like people, you know, everybody, hey, I'm a house flipper. I'm a house flipper. And you know, it's interesting. So I'll just give a tidbit about what I do when it comes to that. I personally do not believe in, you know, just me. I don't, you know, do the house flipping thing. You know, I think that there are certain nuances. You have what's called these wholesalers, you know, and what they do. And I've, you know, and I've seen wholesalers before, and basically with a wholesale, they're not required to have a real estate license, right? So a wholesaler will present themselves, you know, they'll say, hey, I'm buying this deal. And what they'll do in the middle of, you know, the closing period, they'll try to sell that deal to someone else for a profit, and they'll collect the difference. It's dangerous. So for me and my, you know, portfolio that I have in the Midwest, I focus on longevity. So, you know, in the markets that I'm invested in, these aren't big markets. I'm talking about, I have, you know, single family homes for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, right? But that's the market that I like. And what the strategy is, if I can have a bunch of these little $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 homes, and I'm not looking to sell quickly, I'm looking to do what's called hold, right? Because for me, it's about leaving something for my kids, leaving something for family, and having something that I can hold on to. So if you have 5 different homes, and let's say you're, you know, the mortgage is getting paid, and I remember for my first property that I had, I think I profited maybe $75 at the end of every month. That's it. But guess what? I was happy. And if you read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, his process was very similar too. His first piece of property, he didn't make a lot of money, but what I did look at, right, as far as my portfolio, my $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 homes, is equity. If you can get a good tenant in there and they pay, guess what? That $50,000 home is now debt free. So you can buy another one. And if you have 3 or 4 or 5 of these little small $50,000 homes, and each one of them, they're growing in value, you know, incrementally. But now you have no, and you have $50,000, $60,000 worth of equity. That's 150, that's $250,000 worth of equity that you have just from this $50,000 property. So I see a lot of people, you know, running the New York City rat race and trying to, and I live in Bed-Stuy, so a $1.5 million brownstone is cool, don't get me wrong, but you know, you're breaking your neck trying to get that, where if you just set your focus somewhere else, maybe. So my cushion area is no more than 3 hours away, right? Because anything more than that, it's, you know, it's tough, right? So I've driven 3 hours, and in the morning you get there, you take care of what you need to take care of, and you drive 3 hours back. So my rule of thumb is you do not invest anywhere that is beyond 3 hours of driving distance. So, you know, there's other nuances for real estate.
I think it's important that you said that. Sorry to cut you off, but like, you know, for those the people that are listening, there's 2 things that are really important that you just said. A, outside of New York, you can get a house for $50,000. $60,000 is not unheard of. So it's worth looking at. Hell, in this state, Buffalo, you can get a house.
That's what I was going to say. Upstate New York. You go upstate a little bit. Yeah, of course.
And then also to your point about the manager, you're a property manager. You understand the nuance of owning property and taking care of it as well. So if people are looking to do that, being a property manager makes sense because it'll help you with the running of that property as well. It's just part of what you're already doing. So there's real value in just having the knowledge of understanding this industry.
Yeah, perfect. Derek, can you see my whole presentation here? Can you see the whole thing?
Yeah, so like you have it going on behind you, but yeah, everyone else is seeing the entire screen.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Oh, okay, just making sure. All right, perfect. So other careers within real estate, you have a real estate broker and agent, of course. You have a property manager and real estate appraiser, and we'll get into what that means, but technically you do not need a license to become a property manager. For a real estate appraiser, you do need a license, right? So you need to go to school, and you need to, you know, and it's a pretty tedious process, right? To become, you know, to get to the last level of being a appraiser. But for a property manager, while you do not need a license, you should have some type of training. Moving on, a home inspector. So my suggestion I actually have my home inspector license, and it was a great process.
And what don't you do?
Listen, so I'm not a home inspector, but it was a great class, right? And here's the reason why I took it. Because when I got into property management, I got pretty much duped out of a $5,000 bill. So a furnace or a boiler. I can't remember which, what happened, but the vendor comes down. He's like, yeah, man, that's gonna cost you about $5,000. I'm like, really? I'm like, okay, well, whatever you say. So he does the work, and I get the bill, and I take it back to the owner, and the owner is looking at me, like I have two heads. He said, listen, that's a $500 or no more than $1,000 repair, and you got $5,000 for it. So after that, I said, you know what, let me go and become a home inspector just so I can understand the basic nuances of foundation. If there's a crack in your foundation, is that going to be bad? A boiler, a furnace, joists, those kind of things. So that's why I did the home inspector. Not a bad license to have. Not a bad license to have. Also,
we'll be offering it soon.
Oh, wow.
No. I'm glad you said
I'm
that,
actually working on it.
Tywan.
Yeah.
I just had a deal recently, and I'm glad you said that. It's a good license to have as an agent. You know that home inspector killed the agent's deal right there on the home inspection by saying this house is a crappy house. And the agent nearly passed out, because if she had some knowledge of some of the things, she could have even rebutted it or countered or said, no, that's an exaggeration. Because sometimes, especially in Brooklyn, you're not sure why some people say some things to maybe come back. And it's a cruel world in real estate. And
nobody who ever gets their home inspection license charter would ever say that. So that's good.
Yeah, listen, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, if that home inspector was not smart and even mentioned that, technically you're not supposed to give your opinion on,
that's what she said.
If and obviously if they do ask, if there's even, I don't care if the home inspector's walking around, there's electric coming out of the doggone wall, you say, you should speak to an electrician about that, right? You never, you can't say, man, this house is the worst. You don't need to buy this.
Yes, he actually mentioned it, and the clients walked away from the deal.
Wow.
Because he shouldn't have, and she crossed the line. But you see, when you have some knowledge of saying, listen, you're saying that, because since he was brave enough to say that in front of your client, if you had the tools, you could have said, listen, what you said, that's not exactly right, because whatever. You could have rebutted it right there. Since he tried to do you that, not that you is a tit for tat, but you had the tools, you could have said, that's not exactly right. Let me tell you. You could have, say it from a standpoint of some authority. Because he killed the lady's deal, she was very upset. Of
course. And that's the thing. Home inspectors should not, as a home inspector, you're not, it's not like you're opening up walls and looking at pipes either, right? So it's important for them to just kind of not say nothing, but that does happen. And then lastly, on the real estate careers industry list is something that I added, and something we spoke about before, is nonprofit organizations, right? I think that, as we move forward and as the economy kind of does this boom and bust thing, nonprofits that deal in real estate are going to become even more important, because what I like to say, they bring, they stabilize our area, they stabilize our neighborhood. So, and again, it's not just what they do, they provide information. So they provide these seminars, they provide, financial counseling. So I remember one nonprofit that actually, worked at before, people could come there. They had a grant with New York City where people could come there and get their credit scores looked at for free, and they can sit with the financial empowerment. And I'll say this, and that leads me to another point, and I'll go back. If you're a real estate agent and your credit score is anything below 650, well, I would say anything below 7, you need to fix that as a real estate agent. You cannot and should not be selling people homes or apartments if your own financial situation is not together. And I think that it's incumbent upon us, not especially in this industry, if you're a property manager, you should have your own financial house in order. And yes, it takes time, but make sure you're working to it. I can't tell you how many times I've come across a property manager or a real estate person who they're in a $1 million deal. They're talking about credit, with their client, but then their credit is pretty bad. So there's at Restoration Plaza on Fulton Street in Bed-Stuy, they have what's called the Financial Empowerment Center. You can have them set up an appointment. and for 1 hour increments, all for free, they will pull your credit scores. They'll pull you from all three bureaus, from Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. They'll pull all three, and they will sit there and go through your credit report to help you move your score. And this is a good tool and a good resource that you can provide your clients too as well, right? So you can say, wow, real estate agent not only helped me out with this rental or this purchase, but they also helped me out. So I would suggest too that everybody do that. If you're a real estate person, you're in the industry, and your financial situation isn't where you want it to be, go get help. Don't let that stuff linger. Don't. I'm telling you, don't. Because Veronica, as a mortgage person, will tell you, in the long run, that stuff will kill you. And now with Chase, I think Chase, they put something out where they're not even giving anybody anything, any loans that's under a 750 or 7 something or whatever it is. And like, wow, right? So, again, it's just, and that stuff costs you. And Veronica, you can talk about this. The lower your
Yes, it
score,
does.
the higher your interest rate will be on your loan.
Yeah, and that's a question I get asked very often. I was talking to a client that technically had 3 persons on the deal. It was like 2 days ago, and she was like, my score is like in the 6s, but my son and daughter, their scores are in the 7. I said, we're going to do that interest rate of the weakest link. And she was not amused. I said, that's how the bank does it. She was like, why me? Because my son is 750, my daughter is this, but mine is 6 something because of whatever reason she gave me. I said, but no, the interest rate will be on the weakest link.
Yeah.
Back to something that Tywan said earlier about you cannot be counseling somebody. And New York State Banking Department, though, for mortgages, if you have credit issues, they won't issue your mortgage license.
Exactly.
No, they won't.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we have to be on top of our game.
Exactly.
And after Wall Street crash and the Dodd-Frank, those who are familiar with the rules of the Dodd-Frank and that paper, that enormous situation, that paper, how many pages of the Dodd-Frank, we had to get our financial house in order. So, and I've had a lot of friends who were colleagues that were in the business with me before 2008 that couldn't transition because New York State would not give that license. So not only is background be done on mortgage persons, but they pull your credit every November or every time your license is up for renewal, which is every year. So you have to, and it's understandable, as you say, you cannot be talking to somebody regarding their financial position to get them to a certain place and you're not at that place either. It makes no sense. So that's a good point you make. Agents as well, they have people who come to them who will blatantly say to them or honestly say to them, I have credit issues. This is going on with me, and how can I help? How can I assist you? And it's good to know if they develop a trust with you, they will go the whole mile with you. You get their credit up, they buy their house, and you get the package, which is pretty.
Yeah, I agree. And really quick, I know, Jacqueline, she put a question there, right? So no, if you're an agent, no, you're not going to be talking to your customers about your credit, right? But what it does is this: it brings a sense of relatability to what your client is going through. So, for example, when I first got out of college, my credit was all over the place. So what I did, I took the time to build it, right? So now, if I'm with the client and they're like, man, I have credit issues, I can relate, right? And I can tell them, hey, these are some things that worked for me. And again, it goes back to trust, right? So if your client is there, hey, you know what? Wow, they went through the same process. It definitely helps out in kind of building that trustful relationship. And also too, when you're in real estate, you're dealing with, large assets, you're dealing with financial assets. It makes you more confident within what you're doing if you know that your own financial situation is taken care of, right? So if you're at the deal table and you know that your financial situation, that your credit score is looks like the speed limit, 500, right? It's tough for you to kind of be wholeheartedly and wholeheartedly in that process. So no, while you won't, you're right, Jacqueline, while you won't discuss your financial situation with your clients, but it definitely helps you as far as bringing it
confidence.
It helps you you're right. That's the word I was looking for. Your confidence is so much better, right? So that's what I'll say about that. Anything else, Derek? I think we'll take a quick 5-minute break.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can do 5 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll throw up a countdown clock.
Okay, cool.
So we'll come back in 5 minutes and we'll reconvene. It'll be a clock that it'll count down. There'll be like a beeping sound at the end. So we hear that beeping sound. We're back in class.
You got all the bells and whistles, man.
It's Google, man. I just make it look like it.
All right, perfect. Thanks.
All right, thanks. All right, everybody. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. I'll say this right now also. When you come back, let's go ahead and put your license number in the chat and just put the number in there. And for those of you that don't have your full name showing, I'm looking at you, Casey. Put the name that as it appears on your license as well. So I'm going to need the name as it appears on your license and your license number. Just throw that in the chat when you get a moment. Thanks a lot, everybody. I'm going to put the countdown clock up now. Wait. How's everything going, Gabriella? What are you working on? You're running quickly. Is that why you're not going back upstairs yet? Is that why you're not going back upstairs just yet?
Actually pretty fun. So basically what you do is, so there's this like, so you go to different places, right? Called Pick Your Plate. And so you go to different places and you have to choose foods that in your, that like, they cost money, right? But not real money. So you have to like, no, it's just something that we did and I thought was fun in class. So I thought I'd play it on my own. So, so you have to buy stuff so that you get up to your nutritional value. So you have to be in the green by the end of the day.
Wow.
But it has to fit into your budget for each meal.
It's very good learning. So you learn how to eat properly and how to budget your money. Very good tool. Very good. Yeah. Hopefully you remember retain it when you're older.
Right.
And you approach your own life in that same way. I do that. I live, that's why, your mother was probably more vegetable
There's
than
one
I
from
am.
America, so I know what it is.
Yeah.
But I also know what it is because of the posters that are in the cafeteria. Quite basic.
Okay.
Veggies, protein,
Let's talk about the pyramid, the food pyramid.
yeah, meat, and dairy.
Yeah.
A lot of these have like, they have like oils and
Yeah. Because there's lots of different, there's
candy or sugar or whatever. So right now I'm in Cambodia and at breakfast I got mango slices.
All right, we are back. We are back, and he's at the whiteboard. It means you guys got to start paying attention now.
The whiteboard is out.
Yep. I'll do my best to transcribe what you write as well. I haven't seen your handwriting on a whiteboard, but I'll do my best to keep it in the chat so people have access to it.
No problem. No problem. Adjustments here. All right, ready when you are.
We're good. So I think Veronica used up her commercial time during the segment. I thought it was great. I love Veronica to death. I could listen to Veronica. Actually, we had a class, and the instructor said, Veronica, I could listen to you talk all day. Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, Joe. Yeah, Joe. Remember? Maybe he didn't say it to you, but he was after the class. He's like, oh yeah, next time you can just put Veronica on, and I'll just listen. Yeah.
So even if I'm saying, it doesn't matter what I'm saying. It's just
He's engaged. He's engaged. It's all good.
yeah. Thank you, guys. You know what, Tywan, this is quite a learning process for me. You said a lot of things, I must say, that I was not aware of, either through exposure or just blank out, staying my lane kind of thing, which sometimes we have to cross lanes.
Yeah, of course. And again, for me, it's been, real estate has been an interesting, interesting ride, from going down to the courthouse and, kind of getting thrust into, property management and affordable housing and nonprofits. So it's been a roller coaster. So, for all my experiences, I try to, impart that on folks that'll listen. So. All right. So, Derek, we're good?
Yeah, roll with it. So everybody, well, this is always the way it goes. Not everybody's put it in, but that's fine. You can keep going. People are probably going to keep putting it in because they got to find their card sometimes. But yeah, you can go ahead and go.
Okay, perfect. So, so what we'll do, we'll get more into the property management aspect of stuff. For the last hour and a half or so, was mainly about a lot of basic general real estate concepts and real estate ideas. So we're trying to get into, a little bit more property management stuff now. But before we even do that, there's something that's very important to me, and and I'll write it here. So they're called the three C's. Let me know if this, if you can see what I'm writing or not. So, can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Is that fine? Is it showing up like in reverse or?
No, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Because when I'm looking at the screen, it's showing up.
Yeah, exactly.
So these three C's, was taught to me by my mentor, and it's something that I live by whenever I'm doing business with people, or whether it's folks that I meet. So I kind of want to just impart that now. So the three C's, the first one that you have is character, right? So the character, and the thing is, when you're dealing with people, whether you're a real estate agent, whether you're a property manager, you want to deal with people that always have high character, right? So you want to deal with folks that are good, genuine people as much as possible. And if you live by that most in your real estate career, you'll come across people that will be just like that. And it's important to do that. So for me, character is at the top of the three C's, because you always want to deal with high moral, high ethical, high character folks no matter what. All right. So the second one to that, excuse my handwriting, is commitment, right? So the second one is commitment. And what that means is, if you're in a real estate transaction or real estate deal, how committed is your mortgage banker? How committed is your real estate agent? How committed is your contractor to you, right? If you have a contractor, you're working on the deal, are they committed? They're almost at the end of your project. They get a new, bigger project, and they're out, and you're left kind of, well, what the hell happened to my contractor, right? So commitment is huge, and commitment is huge in any relationship, whether it's real estate, whether it's a personal relationship, whether it's a professional relationship, whether it's your boo, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whomever, right? Commitment is important in every aspect of everything that we deal with. So that's the second C. So the third C that we have is capacity, right? So what that means is how good are they at their job? Do they have the capacity to fulfill, to do what they said that they were going to do? So if your mortgage, banker said that they're going to get you a mortgage with, get you money at a 700 credit score, or do they have the capacity to do that, right? So that's important, because when you're working with folks, you want to make sure that the people that you're working with, that they have the capacity to do what they say. So those are the 3 C's. You have character, commitment, and capacity, right? So that's just a little bit. We'll kind of get into a little bit more of that, and you'll see it kind of throughout the presentation here. With that being said, go ahead. You have a question?
No, I was saying, and that's important that you raise that point, because whatever happens in any one of those C's reflects on you.
Yes.
It
Agree. No, I agree with that, and thank you for that. All right, so property management principles. So property management is something that is near and dear to my heart. I'm a property manager by trade. I've managed residential properties, and I've managed commercial properties. So like I mentioned before, I'm currently with RPAI, Retail Properties of America, and we own, manage, and develop open air shopping centers throughout the country. So it's a really high, intensely challenging job, but most of property management is. Because remember, when you're a property manager, you're not going to get many thank yous. You're not going to get many, hey, thank you, Mr. or Mrs. Property Manager, for doing X, Y, and Z. A lot of the work, not all of it, a lot of the work is thankless work. And just also to remember, as a property manager, you're a problem solver. You're a problem solver. So the boiler is going to break in your tenants in your building in the middle of January, and it's 10 degrees outside, and you have, apartments that have babies in them. Time to put on your thinking cap to solve this problem. The lights went out, the electricity went out. So as a property manager, you're always going to get bombarded with a lot of kind of bad, so to speak, things that's happening there, a pipe burst. So as a property manager, you have to understand that you're going to be a problem solver. And what I'll say is this: if you are getting into the property management business, this is not a 9-to-5 business. It is not. So I'm going to tell you that right now, whether you're doing commercial or whether you're doing residential. So anybody looking to jump into property management is not something that you can clock in at 9 and clock out at 5, right? Because if you're managing residential buildings, let's look at it this way. Most people are at work from 9 to 5, meaning that when they get home, that is when the problems start. A doorknob, a light is out, something, anything. So one thing I will say, when you're looking at jumping into the property management industry, you have to be a problem solver, and you have to think outside the box and be creative. And remember, things can happen at any time. So 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night, I've been out, hanging out, having a good time, partying, and my phone rings, and there's an issue with a tenant that you have to respond to. So you are being compensated to manage that property. So just look at it with that mindset, all right? All right, so the property manager. So the role of the property manager, what is a property manager, right? And what tasks does a property manager perform? So we just spoke about that. In short, whether you're dealing in residential or commercial, you deal with and manage the day-to-day. So everything that happens there is your responsibility. We're talking about from a pipe burst to a leaking toilet, to a new lease, to a vendor, to all of those things. And it's important, again, to understand, and we'll get into it more, that developing and building relationships with your tenants and with your vendors are going to be very, very, very important. And again, we have different sectors of property management. So you have residential and you have commercial. The foundation of both, I would say, is very similar, but some of the nuances are very, very extremely different. And we'll get into what some of those nuances are and what some of those nuances look like as well. But as a property manager, and it also varies from what company that you work in. So it's also important to understand the dynamics of who you're working for and what type of properties you're managing. Are you working for an institution, right? So institution may be a little different. Actually, they'll be vastly different from a smaller mom and pop. So are you working with a smaller mom and pop shop? Maybe they have, 5 or 6 multifamily buildings around Brooklyn. or you're working for a large institutional investor and they have large, 20, 30, 100, 200, 300 unit buildings throughout the city. So as a property manager, it's important to understand who your owners are, understanding the reporting that goes into it, and just understanding the basic setup of who you're reporting to, and the ownership structure as well. All right. And as far as tasks, so your tasks vary. So your tasks will vary. And what that means is this, that I've been in property management for a number of years now, and there's always something new that I did not know. In short, what I will say, your task should be twofold. It should be learning the layout of your property, and that's important. So you need to learn the layout, where things are, where are the electrical meters, where are the water meters, learning where the basement is, the roof. So learning and understanding that. And your second task should always be understanding who your tenants are, understanding, and I'll tell you this, no matter, and from my experience, it doesn't matter if it's affordable housing, luxury, commercial, you will always get that one difficult tenant. In every building, every single building that I've ever managed has one difficult tenant. And that difficult tenant doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but that one tenant will feel that they know more than you at your job, right? So you'll always get that, whether it's, Ms. Johnson from the third floor who, wants a new stove every 6 months. You're like, Ms. Johnson, we gave you one 6 months ago, right? Or whether it's that commercial tenant that owns a space in a retail center that knows their lease in and out, which is why as a property manager, you have to, that's why it's not a 9 to 5, right? Because after you're done with your daily tasks, you should be reading through the leases, especially if you're managing commercial property. So residential, the leases are pretty standard, right? A 1 year, a 2 year, it's fairly standard, but commercial is very different. Each lease will vary in time. They'll vary in certain nuances that go in there, guarantees. So commercial, if you are managing commercial properties, you definitely need to be studying and looking at those leases as much as possible. But some of the tasks will always include just handling, and what I mean by the day-to-day, collections are involved in that too, right? So every property manager, and collections are always tough. It's always tough asking for money from people, even if they owe it, right? So listen, Joe, you signed the lease, you owe rent the first of every month, but here we are again, the first of every month or the 5th, asking you, Joe, where's your rent? Well, you know what, man, it's gonna be a little late this month, right? So you will always get tenants like this. And I'll say this, I used to think that it was only, the Joes and the 1-bedroom apartments that are late on rent. It's your Best Buys, it's your Home Depots, and you're wondering, I know you got the money, why haven't you paid yet, right? And that's the thing about being a property manager, collections is always your number one, right? Because you don't get paid if you don't bring in, or if you don't collect money, right? The owner doesn't get paid. If you don't bring in anything for the month, then that means, and your salary comes from that, from what you bring in and from the rents. So it's important to get comfortable with asking people for, hey, you know what, by the way, it's the 5th and I didn't see your rent coming yet. So, and again, in my experience, it doesn't matter if it's, Joe who has the studio apartment who pays $800 a month, or whether it's the big restaurant, national, Five Guys, and I'm just throwing out names, who has, 20,000 locations throughout the world. All of them are the same. And as a property manager, you have to actively pursue collections, right? So if you're looking at getting into the property management business, you need to, and you have to get comfortable with collections. You have to be comfortable with picking up the phone and say, hey, Mary, just wanted to give you a quick call. Right now it's the 10th. I didn't see your rental payment come in. Just wanted to give you a reminder, right? Oh, sorry, you know what? Things got busy. I'm sending it in. And you always have to, well, you can send it right to me. So collections is a big part of your task, and collections is a big part of your responsibilities as a property manager as well. All right? Questions or anything?
No, just this is probably an aside, but what's the proportion of male to female in the property management business?
That is an excellent question.
Just curious.
Excellent. And here's what I've seen. And it varies even within the property management industry, right? So what I'll say in the residential affordable, I've seen more Black and brown females, right? And as you go to luxury, it starts to shift until you get to commercial, right? So I'm in commercial real estate, and I'm in commercial property management. So I manage assets that are millions and millions of dollars, and you don't see people that look like me at all, like at all, period, right? So, and I think it's important. I'm so glad that you asked that question, Veronica, because that was something I was going to get into. And for me, in being a property manager who's in commercial management, I think it's important for, even in the residential, even in brokerage, you don't see a lot of, you see basically white males that are brokering the large commercial deals in Manhattan, right? And you look, and you're like, wow, okay, so CBRE sold the building for $50 million downtown Manhattan. The first thing I always look at is, who are the brokers on that deal? That's the first thing that I always look at, because you know what the commission is on a $50 million deal, So, and I think it's important to understand that, but I think most of it is through education and exposure, right? So most of us may not have been exposed to commercial property management. Most of us may not, if you're a real estate agent and all you know is residential sales and rentals and residential rentals, no one really exposed you to the commercial side of stuff. So it's all about exposure. But to answer your question in short, in affordable housing, residential, I've seen a lot of mostly Black and brown females. And as you kind of go through, and you'll see, Black and brown males as well. In the luxury residential, you'll see, both male and female. It starts to, get a little bit more to non-Black and brown folks. And then as you get to commercial real estate, you'll start to see less and less and less Black and brown folks there in commercial. All right. So, again, we have organizations like REAP, and I'll speak about REAP a little bit later, who's looking to change that. And Derek is familiar with REAP, and I've taken the REAP course, which is the real estate associates program, and they look to bridge minorities, male and females, to commercial real estate opportunities throughout the country. And I think they've been around for 15 years, and they've done a great job. I'm a graduate of REAP as well, and it's been, and it's been great. So, yeah, but that's a real issue in real estate. But even if you look at, residential sales too, right? And you can see it in HDTV and $1 Million Listing, and some of these shows too. They'll have listings for 17 million, 10 million, $8 million, and they're not Black and brown folks. So I think that real estate as a whole, I'm looking forward to it being more diverse, especially as what we're going through in the country right now, as more and more people and more institutions are being aware that there is talent within Black and brown folks. So I'm really excited about what's going to happen within the next year, especially in the real estate space, because there are a lot of programs, a lot of opportunities that are set up for minorities. But here's the key, here's the caveat: minorities have to be in a position to take advantage of those opportunities. You can't be Joe Blow off the street and say, hey, put me on a $10 million listing, right? You're talking about $10 million, you got to bring a $10 million game, right? You have to be ready. You have to be ready to take that on. So it's going to be really interesting to see what's going to happen here in the future in that space.
And it's ironic you say that, again, because I remember back in the day with Brooklyn, because I used to be in Brooklyn.
Hey.
People didn't want Brooklyn, nowhere.
They sure didn't want to come out of the Bed-Stuy.
I know, because
everybody wants to
have property in Crown Heights. I know. And then you saw the shift, and then you saw, because a lot of colored, as you say, Black and brown agents weren't positioned enough. Other people, I see other people come in and still get the $1 million listings.
Yes, I know.
Y'all were here all this time.
I know.
Nobody did anything. And then the minute the tide turned, they still lost out on a lot of the $1 million listing.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I see it all the time, right? So I'll see somewhere like Brownsville or Crown Heights, a very diverse, minority, area, but the folks, instead of going to a local realtor or a local broker, they'll bring in an institution, they'll bring in, a broker from a larger institution that may not know the area as well as a local agent. And again, it's incumbent upon, us to be in the right opportunities, to be in the right positions to take advantage of it. It's unfortunate. And again, while, and I'll see some of the same agents, and you'll see these teams, these large teams, they've, $50 million in deals a year. And I've seen other agents kind of struggling just to make ends meet, and they'll do a rental or two, but it's tough. And it's tough to see that as well. So, and the same thing happens in the property management space as well. You'll see a lot of the Black and brown property managers, they'll have jobs not paying much, but some of the folks that may not look like them, they're managing the really big, shiny commercial spaces. And it's interesting too, because I am a property manager. If I'm in Manhattan, I'll walk by a building. Remember, Madison Square Garden, places like that, has to be managed by somebody or some company. Every building you see in Midtown in Manhattan, a 50-floor high-rise, has to be managed by somebody, right? So when you are looking to get into property management, because my mindset is there, whenever I'm walking by a building, the first thought I'm thinking about is, wow, I wonder who manages that, So I always look up the company, and I always look up the property manager. Unfortunately, you'll see a lot of folks that are not Black and brown. So that is an issue in the industry too. All right. And thank you for that question, Ron. All right. So we spoke about it before when it comes to residential property management, and it will vary, geographically, right? So you have apartment buildings, which you have plenty of here in New York City. You have brownstones, and I'm going to say it for record, yes, Bed-Stuy has the best brownstones in the city. Thank you, right? Again, you have other places like Harlem and Park Slope that have beautiful brownstones as well. Those need managing as well. Then you also have, out the way, the single-family homes. You kind of detached. We won't see a lot of that here in the city. You'll see that in Long Island, 3 hours away in Pennsylvania and Jersey. But nonetheless, those have to be managed as well. And it's interesting because you mentioned the crash, Veronica, and normally institutional investors stayed away from single family market. That's my space. The Midwest, $50,000, $60,000 properties, that's my bread and butter. And people like me, that's our bread and butter. But after the crash happened, you've seen a lot of these institutional investors, they started buying up the single family homes, right? Because that was their hedge against that was their hedge against the crash, right? So, and don't get me wrong, it affected everybody, but what they found out is they paid a lot and they were over leveraged on some of these bigger residential deals, on some of these big buildings, some of these big commercial buildings. So they started buying strategically located single family homes outside of large metro areas. So you have DC, you have places like Philly, right? So these are big cities that have financial centers and places where people want to work, but not everybody wants to live directly on 42nd Street. You may work in 42nd, you may not want to live there. So what these institutional investors started doing is scooping up a lot of these single family homes in the area, but nonetheless, opportunity there for people looking to get into the property management business. There's opportunities for work. And I'll tell you this, if you're looking to get into property management will never go away, never. Whether it's hard times, good times, property management is here to stay because people will always need their properties to be managed. And I've noticed that even in Bed-Stuy, for folks that lived if you live on a ground level and you rent out the first three, sometimes those folks even want property managers because they don't want to be bothered with tenants. Even though the tenants live there, they might not necessarily want to be bothered with those tenants. And they just they'll pay somebody else a percentage of those rents to deal with collecting rent, getting the phone call at 12 o'clock at night, that sort of stuff. So, and that's what a property manager gets paid to do. I deal with it all the time. So that's more on the residential. All right, so you have commercial property management, and we all know what that looks like. We have, retail centers. We have Class A commercial. You have office buildings, and you have retail stores. Here in the city, we have a lot of office buildings and industrial spaces and retail and mixed use. So those are all commercial assets that people manage, and those are all opportunities as well. And there's a different skill set from residential to a commercial. The foundational skill sets are the same, right? understanding that you're a problem solver, but then other nuances comes into play when you're dealing with different assets there, all right? 1 to 5. And then you have mixed use. So mixed use is, very interesting. They fall into the commercial realm. You have your local neighborhood buildings, you have your high end, and then you have your smaller scale mixed use buildings. Mixed use will always have commercial at the ground level and residential on top. These are really good investments for a lot of folks, for a lot of institutional investors, because kind of have the best of both worlds, right? So, you have your residential units on top. But in New York, you have to be careful. And one thing I've seen that New York is very unique in the sense that New York has one of the toughest affordable housing, rent regulation, rent control laws in the country. And rightfully so. I think that some of it is needed because you do have a lot of folks that a lot of owners that will take advantage of tenants. But from my aspect too, I've seen a lot of tenants that take advantage of management as well. So learning the nuances of what rent control is, and those items is going to be important, especially if you're in, you're in that type of building or you're in that setting. All right. All right. So duties and responsibilities. So you have leasing, tenant relations, fair housing, property management, and also rent collection. So we spoke about that. So leasing. What I'll say about this, leasing is the lease is the backbone of everything that you do. So you don't buy, when you buy a building, especially if you're buying an investment property, so the owner that you're working for, your property manager, they're not buying the building, they're buying the leases in that building, right? Because you can have a building, but the building is just sitting there unless you have people or tenants occupying it. So one skill that I would say in the midst of other skills that you need to learn and develop is understanding leases and understanding how it affects what you do. Anything that happens, you always refer back to the lease, especially in commercial property management. Like I mentioned before, in residential management, things are pretty simple, right? It's either a 1 or 2 year lease. You know what your rent is, and that's pretty much it. Commercial is more of a give and take. So these leases are very, very negotiable. I'll show you an example of a residential lease really quickly as I maneuver this. 1 second. One second. All right. Can everybody see this? The lease that's up? Veronica, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the lease? Okay, perfect. So this is just a basic lease, and this is an example. This is pretty much a market rate standard lease.
I'm still seeing duties and responsibilities, just so you know.
Oh, so you don't see the lease, Derek?
No, I don't.
No,
Well,
partial lease agreement,
yeah,
partially.
exactly. Yeah, there's an image of a lease on the duties and responsibilities page, but not a full-on lease.
All right, hold on. Let me get back to that.
Mhm.
All right, is that better?
No,
No, so you don't see the lease.
no.
Okay.
You have it in like a different window? You might have to just change. Yeah, so when you go down to screen share, you have to choose it from the next window. That's all, because it doesn't automatically it doesn't show just whenever you pop up.
Okay, so let's try that one. Not showing up there. All right, is that better?
Yes, there you go. Yep.
Okay, I'll make that a little bigger there. All right, so this is just a basic form of a residential lease. So this one is fairly recently, and this is from a company there, and you'll see what the company is. And this will give you, so as you can see, these lease documents are very detailed. The rent here is $2,850, and this is in the city. I think this was like a one bedroom or 2 bedroom. And obviously we all know what rents are here in New York City. We all live here. but these leases are pretty extensive, and they have to be, because these are legal documents. These are legal documents that these are contracts, right? That you're held accountable for if you leave early or anything like that. So we'll just go through this pretty briefly, but you see how detailed these are. Let's take you down to here. Window guard requirements, just shows you who the landlord is, who the owner is, that sort of stuff. So that's kind of the basic premise of that lease. All right, so we're here. All right. And also too, for commercial leases are much more complex as well. So I'm going to show you an example of what those commercial leases look like. And commercial leases are, it's my favorite. All right. Can we all see the commercial lease? No?
That's the file, but yeah, click on it, then we'll be able to see it.
Okay, so what about now? No?
No, because once you click on it, it opens up, because it's a PDF, it'll open up in a different file, so you got to go to the screen share and find that file and share that one.
Gotcha. I thought that's what I did. So let's one more time. Okay. One quick second, I'll try to find it again.
No worries, because also if you have a few different things open, you'll have to go down to see more, and then
So is that better now?
No, it's still the your documents, it's still your files.
That's interesting. So I opened it up through there. All right, so no worries. So I'll look at it here. That's fine, and we'll just. But anyway, so most of the time these commercial leases are a lot more complex. And here's, what goes into these commercial leases. So these commercial leases, they're always negotiable.
Initially. Oh, actually, Tywan. Yeah, I think, sorry, Natasha was just saying it's in the background. You just had the pop-up file was in the front. So if you just close that, you should be able to see it.
Got it now?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, perfect. I'll look at that.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank
you.
Bow.
Yes. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for that. So here's the dynamics of a commercial lease. And as a property manager, this is very important because you're going to refer back to this document for everything. And what I did, I just highlighted a couple of important portions. So as you can see, the square footage there, it'll always say the premise, 8,648 square feet. So this is and just so you know, this is a real lease from a property that I used to manage. This was a medical center. So this is in Paramus, New Jersey. This was a medical center there. So we had a lot of doctors, a lot of dentists, a lot of people and folks in the medical field. So you can see the term. So just so everyone knows, when you're in property management, these terms are long. So we're not talking about 1 or 2 years. We're talking about 8, 10, 15, 20 years. And when you're dealing with your bigger tenants, your Targets and your Home Depots, they're signing 15, 20-year deals, right? Because these are commercial assets. So they need time basically to kind of get their legs up under them. They need time to recoup that money. So these deals are always long-term. Most of the time at minimum, when you're dealing with that, you'll see these 10-year leases. Something also too to note is most of the time in commercial real estate, it'll always be based off of the price per square foot. And what I mean by that is if it's a rental apartment, they'll say, yeah, the rent is $2,000 a month. In commercial, they'll say, the price per square foot is $20 a square foot or something like that. That's just the way that goes. And that's reflected in the lease as well. These commercial leases. These commercial leases.
Usable square footage, right?
Say that again?
We're not going to get any usable square footage, are we?
Yes, and we can get into that. Yeah, we can get into that. So good point. Great point, Derek. Thank you. Also, too, something to note where it says 2% annually. Most commercial leases will have an automatic increase every year at 2%. And what that does, that makes up for just because the product, goods and services goes up, right? Products and prices, bread, a loaf of bread doesn't cost what it did, 5 years ago. It's just a fact of the way economics work. So most times leases will have these small annual bumps just because the price of utilities go up, the price of gas, the price of electricity goes up, all that kind of stuff. What I will say this too, as a property manager, you are tasked with paying bills. So not only are you tasked with collecting rent, but you also have to pay bills as well. You have to comb through that stuff with a fine-tooth comb, because a $30 overcharge for one of your tenants, and you have 50 tenants, if you times that by 10, by 10 or 12 properties, that comes out to a significant amount of money at the end of the year. And if you're not on top of it, your owner will catch it, because they will catch it, and they expect you to catch that as well. All right. And if anybody needs a copy of these commercial leases, I'm sorry, I'm just going through this pretty quickly. You'll have stuff in here for signage. One thing too, that these commercial leases, as a property manager, that you have to look through is who's responsible for what, for maintenance. So again, in residential property management, you're basically responsible for everything. But sometimes in these commercial buildings, you're only responsible for the roof and up. They are responsible for their AC unit. They may be responsible for their heating unit, for some of those things. So it's important to understand what the lease says. It's important to always abide by that. And one thing I will say, early in my career, I had a heart, and I was, a tenant called me and said, listen, we can't afford the, I know our lease says that we should be, paying for the AC, but we can't afford it. And I did it. That was a wrong move. You always abide by the lease, because what they'll do, they will stick you with that. They will tell other tenants. So always go by what's in the lease. And it's very, very important. So now, as much as I want to help out, Joe, but sorry, Joe, the lease says this, you're going to have to swing that, and you're going to have to pay for it. So that's important, also an important tool as a property manager to always understand. All right. So going on, if you could. Trying to get fancy over here with all these forms. Trying to. Okay. Sorry. You see me? I'll share it once again.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So all right, so so duties and responsibilities. So now, skills needed to be a property manager. So one thing I will say is this, a lot of folks, property management is a job that is thankless at times, and I said that before, but here are just a couple skills that you should have. So you should understand cash flow. Now, you have to have a different skill set from being a real estate agent or broker as opposed to being a property manager. And it's very important when you're moving into the property management arena, you have to understand finances. You have to. It is imperative that you understand how budgets work. It's imperative that it's important that you create a budget. All of those items are very important. Those items are really key, right? So the first skill you have is understanding cash flow, what that means. And we'll get into NOIs and cash on cash returns shortly as well. Two, understanding of market conditions and risks, right? Because also you may be asked to market some of the properties that you have under management. So that's going to be important for you to do as well. So understanding what the current market conditions and what's happening there. Three, communication and management skills. We spoke about this. Personally, I believe, and no matter what industry you're in, that leadership skills and being a leader is one of the most important things that you can ever embark on. And there are books, and I'll suggest some reading materials for leadership skills, because you will have to manage a team. If whether you're doing commercial or property or residential, you have supers, you have porters, you have vendors, and I'm telling you, you have security. And I'm telling you this, I cannot tell you how many times I've driven by my properties and rolled up on my security guard, and what do you think they were doing in there? Sleeping, knocked out, sleeping, right? So And mind you, you're paying for that expense. You're paying, I know for one of my properties, we pay about about $6,000 a month, $6,000 a week for our security. We have a big property, a lot of security. And the last thing I want to know is see my security guard sleeping and having a good time because he just doesn't feel like working that day, right? That's money out the window. So being able to manage that. So, it's a skill to be able to manage your staff, even if you're not directly there. And that's the thing about property management. You're not always directly there. So how can you still keep folks on their toes and being the fact that you may be, off-site management, right? So you have tenant relations and people skills. So we spoke about that before. And I'll speak about that a little bit now. And here's the reason why I said everybody, if you're looking to dive into property management, I believe that you should kind of manage property in rough neighborhoods, right? So my first, kick at property management was in two places, Crown Heights and the Bronx, right? And then I had some properties in Bed-Stuy. But that experience made me tough. I had some tenants and some experiences and people, they was gonna fight me, they cuss me out, they did all kind of stuff, right? So, and I firmly believe that once you deal with those nuances, you learn how to deal with people, because you have to, have this screaming tenant, she's screaming at you or he's screaming at you for whatever reason. And then you have a burst pipe that's going on next door. You have, somebody who didn't pay rent for the last 6 or 7 months that you have to deal with all at the same time. So you're juggling all these different things as a property manager. And what it does, it teaches you, you know what? I cannot lose my cool. I cannot lose my head, and I cannot break down. Because if you do, then maybe that's not the job for you. So that's why I said, if you're going to start off in property management, start with something rough, right? So when it gets better, you're like, man, I can do this. This is easy, right? But and for me, having those experiences really shaped me. So when I moved over to different aspects in property management, I kind of seen the toughest portions of the business as well. So number 5 is maintenance and construction knowledge. So I'm not saying that you have to be a construction whiz, but you should know certain things. You should know what a burst pipe looks like. You should know certain things that's going on in your business. Because like I said, when I first got into the business, a vendor came to me and said, yeah, man, I think that's going to be about $5,000 for you there. And I didn't know any better. So I said, okay. And come to find out that that wasn't an actual $5,000 expense. So knowing that will really go a long way. Again, you don't have to be a maintenance and construction expert, but you should have a general baseline understanding of how these things work in your building.
Tywan, did your home inspection class, did that inform you in that? Did you say that's a decent baseline, or?
Yes. So I would say this, that the home inspection exam is pretty tough. It was, for me, in my experience, it was tougher than the real estate salespersons and the brokers put together. So it's pretty tough because you have to learn different aspects, especially if you're not, maybe if you kind of grew up in construction and I didn't. So for me, understanding some of that stuff and piping and ductwork and roofs and soffits and facades and foundation and learning what a crack looks like and heaving and all these different terms, I had no clue what any of that was. So for me, the knowledge was really good. And the good thing about it is it's pretty quick. So once you get the license, you have it. There's, you're a home inspector, so you don't, unlike in brokerage, you're a salesperson and then you can take the broker's exam. There's none of that. So once you get it, you get it. For folks that are trying to be real estate entrepreneurs, it doesn't hurt that you have that. Now, you cannot inspect a deal that you're brokering, right? You can't do that, right? So you can't say, yeah, your home is about to fall down, but because you're the broker on it, you're like, yeah, I inspected it, yeah, home is good to go, right? You can't do that. But what it does, if you are, in the business, I use it as a baseline for knowledge, and I use it as a baseline to increase and move up in property management and deal with inspections. I used to work for a commercial, I used to work for a strictly commercial inspection company, which was pretty cool. And it's funny, so I did this when I first started out in brokerage. So what I did is there was a firm, and what they used to do, they send you these inspections via online. So all you had to do was just inspect these commercial properties. And these were big commercial buildings. So in addition to being a real estate broker at the time, I also was inspecting these commercial properties, and they would pay you per project. It was really good. I actually liked it a lot. But what I would do, and I was with Compass at the time, so I would bring my little Compass card, and at the end of the deal, I'd say, by the way, here's my card, you need some commercial stuff, right? So for me, it was pretty cool, and that was a good experience. And for me, now what I'll say, it makes no sense in getting a license and just having it, right? Because you have to at least put it into some kind of use, unless you're going to lose that information. So for me, it was great to have that license and also be able to exercise and work out that muscle a little bit, which was pretty cool. And what it does, it gets you really good at filling out inspection reports and inspection forms. And as a property manager, those inspection forms, that's your lifeline. You're going to be doing that a lot every quarter, sometimes every month, completing those property inspections. So for me, it was kind of like a win-win scenario there. That answer your question, Derek?
Yeah, definitely did. Yoheni has a question that's a follow-up, actually. It's a really good follow-up to what you said is, if you're an agent and a property manager, obviously you can't inspect your own deals, but can you inspect deals for your office? Would you be like an in-house, for example, property manager?
Yeah, so most of now, here's the thing, right? You always want to kind of keep a clear-cut, defined, especially Veronica spoke about it. A part of what happened in, that sparked some of the crash was people, kind of like double dipping and doing stuff like that. Hey, by the way, I'm also a mortgage broker. By the way, I'm also an agent. By the way, I'm also this, that, and the third. So as far as that, if you're not involved in the deal in any kind of way, you have nothing to do with the deal, you should be able to move forward with inspecting that property. But, and I'll get more clear, that's a great question, but if you're a part of one real estate firm, that probably would be a little gray area, because remember, there could be 100 agents at one firm, but if they're a client of one agent, they're a client of the firm, and you all belong to that firm. So technically, you all are agents of that all is your client. That person is your client too. So you want to be a little fickle about that as well. Go ahead, Veronica, you were going to say something?
No, you were absolutely correct. I'd say for that question, you kind of it would be best you stay clear of a situation like that, to be honest with you. It's not as Tywan says, it's not like it's your particular property, but once the connection is made, God forbid anything's happened and the federal government is good at making a straight line even when there is none, it's best you just stay clear. Because Derek, the federal government, they will connect all the dots when there are not even dots to be connected. So just because I'll say that again, it's with the same firm, it would be easy to stay clear of it.
Yeah, so I would say you'll be fine with other firms, to market yourself as a home inspector. Hey, I also inspect if it's a separate firm of yours. You just don't want, like Veronica said, you don't want to get caught up in that, all right? So lease negotiating, we spoke about that. 7, property economics and marketing skills. Again, as a property manager, you'll be expected to know your local market. That's very important. The property economics means the finances of the property. What's happening there? How much income does that property produce, and so on and so forth. Risk management and life safety skills. So, but with that being said, you have to know. So, for example, is this. I went to my property in Boston just the other day, and as I walked the property, there was a lot of trip hazards. Concrete, I'll tell you this, parking lots, you have to repair and repatch and restripe pretty much yearly. And here's why. If you have a big parking lot, during winter, we live in the Northeast, especially up in Boston where this property is, it gets really cold and it snows really bad. So what happens is if you have concrete, water gets in there, it gets in the cracks, and it freezes. And when that water freezes, it expands the concrete. So when you add salt, and salt helps erode the concrete. So when the summer and the spring comes back, that little inch crack is now almost a foot. So, Mr. Johnson is walking, and Mr. Johnson is an older gentleman, and he steps in that crack, and now you have a lawsuit, right? So as a property manager, you have to be aware of where those trip hazards are, because that's some of the worst things that you can do. We all know the day and age that we live in. There's somebody somewhere always looking to sue somebody for some money. So as a property manager, it's important to, to have that, to be aware of some of those trip hazards as well, right? All right. So we spoke about commercial tenants and leasing a little bit, and I'll dive into a little bit more. So again, when you're talking about commercial property management, it's a different nuance. The first step is this, is the lease negotiation part. So as a property manager, you may be expected to negotiate that lease. And it's always what the market is calling for. And what that means is you can be at $25 a square foot could be market, but that tenant says, you know what, I can only afford $23 a square foot. So it's a give and take. And there's a lot more nuances and back and forth into the lease negotiation portions, and we'll just cover some of it. And there's something called TI, which is or TA, which is tenant allowance, and that's contingent on the price as well. And what that is this: so in commercial real estate, when a tenant moves in, because a owner wants them there, they will give them a certain allowance, which is called a TA, a tenant allowance. Meaning that we'll give you, or we'll pay up to $50,000 of your build out because we want you here. So that's also a mechanism that a lot of commercial landlords and the commercial owners do to entice people to come to their building, to come to their unit. And that actually offsets the price. So for example, if you're going to give a tenant a high number, $100,000, right, that you're going to pay them, you may want to raise the price per square footage. So commercial real estate for property management is always a give and take. Now, most of the time, contingent on what firm you're working with, and I'm talking about commercial now, there may be another department that actually deals with that. So be aware of that. Most of the time, the property manager's job does not kick in until the tenant is actually on site, all right? So once the tenant moves in, now as a property manager, you're ready to rock and roll. And what that means is now they have turned over the responsibilities of dealing with that tenant to you. And now it's upon you to answer emails and phone calls and fix the leak and fix those repairs and do a lot of that. All right. So that's with the commercial property management portion. And that comes in many different forms as well, because like I said, I deal with mostly open air shopping centers, and there are other like closed-in malls. Closed-in malls are different. During the pandemic, a lot of closed-in malls were closed, period. But most of my properties remained open throughout the pandemic. Now, some stores weren't there. We had a couple barbershops, but for the most part, most of the food tenants, they actually stayed. And I know, Veronica, you asked this question earlier before, how some of the tenants dealt, but from what I've seen, from my personal experience, from what I've seen in my malls, that a lot of the food tenants made out okay. And they shifted their business. And here's how. So most of the time it was 70-30, meaning that 70% walk-in and 30% online. It shifted. It was 70 to 80% online and 30 to 20% walk-in, if they even could, or carry out. So I know a lot of, like, for example, it was a salad place at one of my properties that makes phenomenal salads. Salads are really good. They stayed open throughout the pandemic, and they made out very well. They really didn't have a slowdown or anything. They continued to pay their rent. They continued to do all of that. So there are a couple of tenants throughout the pandemic that actually made out very well. But as a property manager, it's important to understand which one of those tenants are doing well and how you can help out in that aspect. Right? Questions about that? Anything?
No, you're good.
Perfect. All right, so vendors and contractors. This will be your lifeblood as a property manager. Repairs, service requests, and work orders. So let's go with repairs. Real estate is a tangible asset, so you'll probably go through some form of repairs maybe 10 to 20 times a month, whether it's a doorknob, whether it's a leak, whether it's something, especially contingent on the amount of on the amount of properties that you actually manage. But repairs is going to be a huge aspect. Now, how you manage those repairs is going to be key. So when you have your vendors, some things that some aspects you'll be able to outsource and some not so much. So if you're in the residential field, and if you have a big enough building, you'll have supers and porters. Most of the time, your super will be a live-in super, and your super should handle a lot. Your porters are mostly there to support the super, and they normally do a lot of the cleaning. So most of my, when I had, still have a couple, for my porters, they normally work a 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift, right? And I do that because when people, if people go to work during that time, right? If you live in a bigger building, people are coming out to your building, and the last thing you want people to see is a dirty building. And I do that in my commercial properties as well. For me, there's nothing more that will make me angry as far as a tenant calling me early in the morning and saying that there's trash or the building looks dirty or something like that. And in regards to repairs, most of the time that I've seen, for some reason, a lot of the critical repairs happen after 5. A pipe burst. I'm telling you, a pipe will never burst when you're at the office or when you're at the property. It will always burst at 2, 3 in the morning, and you're jumping out your bed trying to figure out what's happening and what's going on. So you have what's called, if a pipe bursts, that's more like an emergency repair. And then you have the smaller repair. Maybe a doorknob is missing or a doorknob is broken. But nonetheless, get comfortable with dealing with repairs. And I'm not saying you have to particularly be on site with a wrench in your hand to do it yourself, because I ain't that handy. But you should also have the know-how. Your supers and your porters and your vendors should have the know-how to how to deal with that and to work with that. So service requests. So one thing about property management, most of the time, and just so you all know, this stuff is streamlined through systems. So there's a system that most of New York uses. It's called either Yardi, called Yardi Breeze. Derek, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with those systems. And you have
formerly employed by Yardi.
Say that again. Formerly
employed by Yardi.
Yeah, hey, there you go, exactly. And then you have Appfolio. So what I would suggest for all you real estate agents and real estate brokers looking to jump into property management, you have to get very comfortable and very familiar with a lot of these systems. You should know how to use them, because that's how you keep track of it, and it really helps you at the end of the year, because you can say, you know what, Miss Jackson, she's always calling about her broken handle on her faucet. Let me see how many times I filled out work orders for her. And then you look back to the year and you see Miss Johnson every single month, she has a broken sink or a broken faucet. So next time she calls you, like, Miss Jackson, you paying for this because you call us every month and we replace it. So getting familiar with Yardi and Appfolio and some of those other property management softwares is going to be crucial, and it's going to be very important to you. And so I think when I first started, I think it was Power and Why. Maybe Derek, you know this. When I first started, it was called Power and Why. Is there software like that, Power and Why? But it was a software. It's very similar to Appfolio, but what it does, it connects you to the city, so you can look at all your violations if you have different violations. And I know Empower, yes, that's what it's called.
I used to know those guys. Those were good. I worked a lot with them when I was with Property Shark. Those were good guys. That was a great product, because you could also check your not only your violations, but your violations. Right, you knew what your violations were, and they would help you fix them as well. Yes, Empower. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. So I became acquainted with them when I first started in property management. So I can only imagine right now how good the product and how good the software is right now. But the major player in the space is Yardi. Yardi's pretty much, the big boys there. Not so much in the commercial space, though. I'm not sure if their functionality is for commercial real estate. All the commercial firms that I've been in, they use something called JDE. They've used other more financial-based, we use Avid as well to pay bills. But whatever system that your property management company uses, you should definitely get familiar with how to use those systems, because that's going to be your bread and butter.
Yeah. I've even seen people, because like Yardi's training, they have very hardcore training. They have their own kind of training core.
Yes,
I've seen people
yes.
with that on their LinkedIn, on their resume, Yardi trained. I know how to use Yardi. So that's actually a benefit and a skill set that actually travels with you in the job.
Yeah, good point. And for all the attendees as well, getting training in that goes a long way, especially if you're looking to jump into the property management space. Having that training it really goes a long way. You know, and one thing I'll mention is this. When you are in property management, or if you're looking to get involved in property management, doesn't necessarily have to be a full-time job, right? Because you can still do your real estate brokerage work, and you can also be a part-time property manager as well too. It's just finding that right fit, and especially now, right? This pandemic, you know, and it's caused a lot of turmoil throughout our world. I think we're closing on almost 200,000 deaths in the U.S., right? Which is unfortunate. But one thing that this pandemic has done, it has showed a lot of companies that people can work remotely, right? Even us being on this Zoom call right now, we have 21 attendees with myself, Veronica, and Derek. It shows that we're resilient. It shows that we can do things via online. So, you know, I think that a lot of these property management companies, actually, for me personally, I haven't been to the office in months. I haven't been to the office in almost 6 or 7 months. But I still go to my properties and I have my office at home and I kind of set everything up. Listen, as long as you have a decent laptop and an internet connection, you're ready to rock and roll. So don't think that jumping into property management, you have to quit your brokerage business. You don't, right? It's about finding that good fit. And maybe you can be a part-time property manager and you can work that out. So if you can still keep, so what I did, I was a property manager and I had my real estate license somewhere else. And if you want, you can work out something with your property management firm that you can still get a commission off of, you know, possible, you know, renting and things like that. So, so those are certain nuances that you can work out as well. So work orders. So work orders is something that's going to be very, very important. As a property manager, do not let a vendor do anything without having a work order. So basically a work order is, I am giving you permission to do the work that we agreed that you said that you would do for this price. What you'll do, and don't get me wrong, no matter, and I have very, very, very good relationships with my vendors, but at no time should you allow your vendor to start doing work that you don't have work orders for, because it is impossible for you to remember all of that. And they'll start saying, yeah, Joe, remember, yeah, you told me to do X, Y, and Z. And you're like, yeah, I guess, you know, and they really didn't do it. So whenever you send out for a vendor to do something, you should always attach a work order to it. That way that everybody knows that this is something that you issue to them and they have that work order to do that work. And again, these programs, JDE, these programs, Yardi, and some of these other programs, they have the functionality built in them to actually do these work orders as well. All right. Any questions on that? All right. Moving on. All right. So you have hiring staff and vendors. So as a property manager, yes, you will be tasked with hiring folks. Who does a property manager hire? You know, selecting the right maintenance staff. So most of the time, if you're, you know, a property manager, you're going to be hiring supers, porters, and vendors. Your vendors will mostly be for your monthly services. So for example, in the Northeast, it snows. It snows big. So actually, I'm in the process of doing snow contracts. So I have to make sure that vendors that I select a snow contractor to make sure that's done. Landscaping, sweeping and porting of your property. Well, these are for malls, and in residential, you have to hire your supers and porters, right? Because what I'll say is this: always treat, and this is a, you know, tidbit, a little gem. Always treat your maintenance staff as if you would treat the CEO of the company, because your maintenance staff will make or break you. It will make or break you in this industry, in this business. So make sure that when you're selecting your maintenance staff, that you're selecting the best maintenance staff as possible. Make sure that you select folks that are going to be on time. Make sure you select people that are going to do the best job as possible, because even when you're not there, they should still be working. You want to make sure that when people walk into that property, that when people walk into the entrance, that it's clean and you know, it's good. Also, contingent on, you know, especially here in New York City, you're going to be dealing with local unions, right? The biggest union we have in New York City is 32BJ. They're one of the biggest maintenance workers unions, so a lot of times you're going to be dealing with them. So it's important that you understand the nuances, good and bad, of hiring staff, of hiring 32BJ workers as well. And dealing with unions in general, right? As a property manager, especially here in New York City, you're going to be dealing with unions. So you should definitely read that contract, the union contract, and you should understand what you can and what you cannot do as far as when you are dealing with the local unions as well, right? So that's important. Move on. All right, so we have property financials, all right? So this is an important aspect. This is fun. Well, I think it's fun. All right, so let's get back here. Hopefully everybody can see my board. All right, so what we'll do is this. So in real estate, all right, Derek, Veronica, you guys can see the board here?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, perfect. So here's the thing. Even in addition to everything that was discussed and everything that was said as far as, vendors and maintenance and service requests, everything hinges on the financial aspects of the property, right? So we're going to go through maybe 6 financial terms that are critical that you should know. So if there's anything that you walk out of this webinar with, at least walk out of with these 6 financial terms, right? So mostly everything, when you're dealing with the property, hinges on what's called, and this is the first term, is one of the most important, but all of them are very important. So term 1 is your NOI, right? That's your NOI. Hold on, let me get my black marker, sorry.
I'll transcribe it in the chat too, so that way it's there for longer as well.
Perfect. And can you see property? Is it a little dark here?
Well, you're good. I can see you, and the thing is white. There's like a shadow in the back, but in the corner, but you're fine, actually.
Okay. All right. So there's that. This is better. Yeah. All right. So your NOI. Oh, that's a lot better with the black one.
Yeah.
So your NOI. So your NOI is a very, very important term, whether you're talking about, finances, property management, whatever it is. And what that means, your NOI is your net operating income, right? So your NOI is your net operating income. And as a property manager, you're always worried about this number. You're always worried, whether it's good or whether it's bad. If it's bad, you're worried. And here's what your net operating income is. Here's what the NOI is, right? Simple. I'm just going to make it very simple. What is your income minus expenses? And whatever that number is, right? So if you made in rental income, if you made 100K for the year and your property expenses were 75K for the year, right? You're at 25, right? So let me make that better, sorry. Can you read my handwriting? A little bit. So let's make it simple. All right. So your NOI is 100K a year on your rental income and your expenses are 50K, then that means your NOI is $50,000 for the year. Now, here's the thing about NOI. Your NOI, when it comes to expenses, your NOI does not incorporate your debt service. And your debt service is the mortgage on the property, right? So if your mortgage is, another $20,000 for the year, then what that does, then that bleeds into your net, that bleeds into your net income, right? And your net income, term 2, your net income is what you basically take home in your pocket, all right? So the NOI, I call the NOI an above the line number because it doesn't incorporate your debt service. And your net income is what you take home. That's after all your expenses. This is what you can kind of take home for you. And the reason why the NOI is important because some properties may not have any debt service, right? And you can always, play with these numbers as far as income and expenses. When your NOI goes up, that's better. When your NOI goes up, one of two things happen. Either your income increases or your expenses go down, right? So most of the time, it's harder for your income to go up. But if you manage properly, you can make your expenses go down. So for example, what I did, currently I'm bidding out snow contracts. And what we did as far as, so let's say last year, snow per month was $5,000 a month. If I can get it to $4,000 a month this year, while my income did not change, my NOI number goes up because I lowered my expenses, all right? So if everybody gets that, so your NOI is a very, very important number, all right? So that's your NOI. So that was one of the first important financial terms, right? So number two is your cap rate. Now, and you'll see how all these terms build on top of one another. Actually, let me move that over.
Tywan,
Yes, ma'am.
before you move on from the NOI, let me tell the agents that that particular the NOI is the single most important thing in doing a commercial mortgage. The operating expenses, no matter what the client is, they have 800 credit score, their tax returns excellent. We are going to zeroing as the mortgage lender on the property's NOI.
And thank you for putting that into perspective, Veronica. Can you talk a little bit more about what that underwriting process looks like for you guys?
Yeah.
Like, so the NOI, what do you guys,
And yes, ladies, this goes for commercial and mixed use as well. The same criteria basically. Mm-hmm. So if a client comes and say they want to buy mixed use or commercial, that's fine. They give us their income if they're buying it on the LLC, whatever they're in their corporation papers, everything. That becomes insignificant or is not as significant as that NOI. What the bank looks at is what is the income and expenses related to that property. Because it makes no sense you have a good credit score, your income is good. The lender is gonna look at what the property, that's the mistake a lot of people make. They look at the property, what the property produces, what is the income related to the property, and what is the expenses related to the property. Technically, that's the heart. The NOI is the heart of a commercial loan.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'm glad we had a mortgage person to put that in perspective to kind of let you all understand how important that NOI number is. That's why it's number one up there on the chart. So thank you for that, Veronica.
That's definitely the heart of a commercial or a mixed use loan, the NOI.
Yes, thank you. The second one is your cap rate. Your cap rate, which is the short.
Was net income too, or was that part of NOI?
Say that again?
Was net income too before, or was that part of NOI the way you were putting it out there before?
Yeah, you can, we can do that. So I didn't put the net income. That could be a part of number two because we did go over it. So
yeah, I wasn't sure. Sorry, because it had the two, and I was like, oh, it's another one.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So yeah, net income. Net income is your take home. And remember, the difference between the NOI and the net income is the debt service, right? So that's the difference. Again, your net income is what I call below the line. That's all in. That's everything, right? Tax, that's the whole shebang. All right. So number three, actually, and thank you for catching that, Derek, is your cap rate.
Got to be a factor. That's all.
Got to be a factor. I get you. So your cap rate. So your capitalization rate. And the reason why, and you'll see all these terms, they build on top of one another. And I'll show you, and here's the formula for your cap rate. Your formula for your cap rate is the NOI divided by the sales price. Right? So in order for you to do a cap rate or understand what the cap rate is, you have to know what the NOI is. And here's where the cap rate is important. And here's how you put it into real life scenarios. let's say Brooklyn Heights, right? Brooklyn Heights will have a low cap rate. Let's say Midwest, Nowheresville will have a high cap rate, right? Here's the difference. The reason why is because the lower the cap rate, the more stable asset you're going to get, right? So the lower the cap rate is, if it's a 3 or 4%, again, while real estate, nothing is guaranteed in real estate, but if you're in Brooklyn Heights has been Brooklyn Heights for a long time, right? So you're almost then they're guaranteed that you're going to get that, right? And there's not much wiggle room that you can do to even increase those rents or increase anything because it's already good. Midwest, out in nowhere, that cap rate is high because that's what you could potentially get a 15, 16%, which is high. It beats anything else. 15, 16, 20, percent is really good, but these are risky. And with anything in life, right, when you have a high risk, it could be a high reward, right? So that's how you put cap rates into perspective. If you're investing in the entry barriers too. So again, my little $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 homes, those cap rates are pretty high because they may be in places that are so undesirable, and you can get into there for 50, 60,000. But for Brooklyn Heights, it may take you 5, 6, 7 mil to get into that, to get that cap rate. So that's how you quantify what those cap rates look like, and that's what I do. And it's interesting, a mentor taught me that lesson a while ago. So most of the time, you can know what type of asset it is just by asking, well, what's the cap rate? So if they tell you a really high cap rate, if they tell you, 30, 40%, you're thinking, oh, war zone, right? If you get a low cap rate, you're like, okay, cool. Lower cap rate, you have the guy in the hallway playing the piano. There's a guy taking you to your elevator on the floor. You're getting the whole kid and caboodle. So that's how you quantify cap rates. And the formula for that is your NOI divided by your sales price, right? And that'll tell you, express as a percentage what your cap rate is. And from there, you can always kind of figure out what neighborhood or what type of asset that is going to be. All right, that's your cap rate. Go on to number. We're going to go on to number 4, and Veronica could speak about this one too. Number 4. And you don't really, so this one I really don't hear much, and I'm not sure why, because I think it's so important. I think it's very important, is your DCR, right? And your DCR is your debt coverage ratio. And the formula for your debt coverage ratio is your NOI divided by the annual debt. Now, here's the thing with the DCR. This is what banks and other financial institutions will use this number to determine what can you afford what you're trying to apply for, right? So most of the time, and Deborah, you can speak, Veronica, sorry, you can speak about this a little bit more. Most of the time, maybe financial firms may look for a minimum of maybe 1.2. A good debt coverage ratio is anywhere from 1.4 to 1.5 or higher, right? That means that, hey, I can afford this. And that's what the DCR is, and that's a part of the underwriting process. So when you're applying for the mortgage, and the reason why people like Veronica is asking for your income, right? They need to know how much money can you make? Can you afford the asset that you're applying for? So maybe Veronica, you can talk a little bit more about kind of like the underwriting process and what that looks like.
That's important because what a lot of questions we get, we don't get it a lot on residential, but on commercial or mixed use. Somebody, you know what, I'm good at hairdressing. I've always paid a booth chair, a rent chair. I'm buy a building and I am going to open something like just at the spur of the moment. Bank will say, no. We don't care how good you are at wherever you are doing it. You're not doing it at this particular spot for this amount of years. So we have no track record of you. So they're like, but so that's a breakdown here. So the next best thing we have to look at is that what other coverage you might have. Your income and the debt that goes up against your income and the annual, the projected annual, income versus the debt that you have occurred or you're occurring or you will occur occur over a period of time. So that's very important. Commercial loans are kind of different. When it comes to residential, we pick your credit. Of course, credit is always there, but we look at other things. But a lot of the things, as Tywan is saying, is hinged on the property itself, what the property produces. How long have it been there?
Yeah.
Introduce something new. It was a vegetable stand. Can I turn it into a mechanic shop? Can, you know, yeah, because people come cross areas all the time. I have an uncle that does this very well, and he wants to open a business. Those are the things that will let a bank evaluate a commercial space or a mixed-use space versus saying, listen, your debt is good, your income is good, so I'm going to just give you that loan. It doesn't work that way with a commercial mortgage. We look at the things, number one, especially number one, number three, and number four.
Yeah, thank you again for that, Monica. For the last one that we're gonna have, you know, the term, I don't know, I like to say, so this one is called cash on cash return, right? We have cash on cash. And here's what the formula is for cash on cash. Cash on cash formula is the cash flow. So basically your cash flow, another name for your cash flow could be your net income as well, right? So it's your cash flow divided by either your down payment or money initially invested, right? And this number is expressed, and this number is expressed as a percentage, right? So basically it's the ratio of your before tax cash flow to the amount of money that you invested. So you'll see a lot of investors, they'll like to know what that cash on cash number is. Now, here's the thing. These financial terms, and I'll get into it a little bit, are more on the asset management side, right? So property, so I've been a property manager, and once you get into the property management industry, remember that it's not just about, you know, making repairs and sending work orders. You have to know these financial terms as well, because then you'll start to move into asset management. At the end of the day, your goal is to collect rent and pay bills, right? And you have to know these nuances, and you have to know how to create a budget and how these terms line up into what your owners, because you're working for an owner, into what they want as well. Right?
I think also what's really great about these is I knew all those terms except for DCR, and the reason I know those is because investors know those numbers. So if you're thinking about becoming an investor, this is the stuff you need to know as well. So this is just one more way to get you there.
Yeah, I was gonna say this stuff, you know, as Veronica said, you know, these are terms that the bank is gonna, that your lender is gonna look at, right? So, you know, you should be, you should already know, you should have an idea. You shouldn't go there saying, well, hey, I'm just praying that something goes right? You should kind of already know what's gonna say.
Exactly. And another caveat to things or nuances, as you would say, you have a building or a mixed use that's a church versus a liquor store. I mean, that's probably not too good analogy, but
right next to each other.
I know, right? You know, the bank, even if the church is paying more in rental, in income, or pulling more at any given time, the liquor store will probably get precedent over it, not because it's harder to evict or get rid of or of a church. You know, they ain't touching that with a 10. So you look at those in terms of rent.
Nobody wants to be the landlord that evicted, you know,
the church. Amen. You don't want that. So the bank looks at it just like that too, in terms of giving a mortgage and a loan they will give. They will say, listen, if something goes down with that church, they lose their members or something, whatever goes down, the one that the price will be against. Or no, not technically that, but we don't want to be the one to be in that side of the fence when it comes to a church. So those are the things the bank looks at. So even if the church, even if the liquor store is probably pulling less than the church, the argument for the liquor store would be stronger.
I agree.
Getting a loan, they ain't touching the church, because anything goes down, trouble.
Well, liquor store is always good tenants, and here's why. So good times or bad times.
Yeah, that's a bad analogy.
No matter what, you know, lost your job, girl left you, I'm drinking. Hey, got a new job, got a new girl, I'm drinking. right? People always drinking. So, hey, you know, that's a
Yeah,
good
but
argument there.
yeah, but coming up against the church in but banks are very, very. That's the least one. That's a yeah. That's the line they will not jump at to say, listen, it's a church that we have good membership. They are still not jumping through hoops to give a church a loan just like that.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
And
something to
yeah,
bear in
and
mind.
especially now.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, but then again, you know, it's funny. I've seen, and I'm pretty sure we all have seen what's happened with churches lately, in the last couple of years. But you have a couple of churches. So I know there's a couple of churches here that a couple of my friends go to. And these churches, man, they get the real estate business and they own property and they have property managers and they have rental income and they're, you know, there's a church in the Bronx and they do deals. They do JVs, which is called a joint venture. They do JVs with other local nonprofit developers. You know, so the smart churches that have progressive leadership, they're out there doing real estate deals because they understand. And remember, you know, some of these churches for a long time, especially in places like Bed-Stuy, where I lived, where nobody wanted to come, they own buildings. They own a lot of real estate that was just sitting around. They own this stuff.
A lot of church that do well like that though are strong organization. I can see,
Yes.
because I do a lot of loans with the SDA. They are very strong at a certain level. So what they do, instead of individually or singularly collecting their collections or their tithing or whatever they do, it is pooled to a central area and then dispersed.
That's right.
It makes them stronger. When you have the little ones that just do here, do there, no matter how big it is, it becomes difficult in a lending institution to carry loans like those.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. No, I definitely agree. And thank you for that. So those are financial terms. You posted them in the chat, right, Derek?
Yeah, I just put them up there. I just did like the basic thing and then the calculation.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to pull forward where we left off. All right, so we did budgets. So understanding the operating budget, and I'll try to bring one up very quickly. Kind of get a look at that. 1 second. I just want to show this budget. Derek, I wish I had some of your skills here, man.
It's all about practice with me. I have no skills. Just practice.
And with the Zoom stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been doing it since March, so yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let me. All right.
That's my
Can you
secret.
see this? Where it says Sarah? Okay, perfect.
Rockwood Medical? Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so as a property manager, yes, you will be expected to create these property reports. And again, we have Veronica, who's with the financial institution. Owners and financial institutions, they look for these type of reports. So this is an actual report that I did when I worked for this company, Rock. You know, this was in 2015. And this is a tidbit on what these reports look like, right? So here's what's in the report. We have our executive summary, notes on budget variance report, information, and so on and so forth. So let's dive deep. So the executive summary outlines what happened for the quarter, whether good, bad, or in between. So just to read the executive summary for this particular quarter, it says, this quarter's net income was lower than anticipated. Obviously, that's not good. NOI and net income are below budget because of delayed CAM collections and increased operating expenses due to unexpected repairs and utility charges. So Veronica, sitting as the financial institution, this report going back to them is not too good, right? Veronica, what would you think about if you've seen that executive summary and that cash on cash?
Definitely not. That stops right there. It's funny you brought this up. It's very important because aside from commercial and mixed use, we kind of, I should have mentioned this earlier. You see large buildings like co-ops and condos. We go in depth on documents that are produced by those huge co-op buildings and huge condos. And there is a percentage we take, like 10%, we look at the delinquency rate.
Yes. Yep.
We look, and people are like, but I'm paying my mortgage and I'm paying my HOA and I'm paying whatever, the common
Common area, the maintenance fees.
maintenance fees. But the minute it passes a certain percentage, the bank, no matter how good you are,
Mm-hmm.
the potential borrower, the
Mm-hmm.
bank will not lend you that money.
Mm.
Because we're going to look at reports like this coming out of co-ops.
Bingo.
The bill and whatever this report goes, that's what we're going to lend you on. Because what borrowers sometimes don't realize is that the general I was trying to do a loan for a property just recently in the Bronx, one of those huge co-op buildings, and they owed something like $400,000 in water and
Oh,
tax.
wow.
Yes, and the bank would not lend it.
Of course not. Of course not.
Yeah, because I explain to clients, whatever affects the general area in condos and co-ops and huge buildings like those, it's
That's the
affect.
building. Yep.
So it doesn't matter if you have excellent payment record, I've been paying your maintenance, I've been paying your mortgage, general information like these or that their financials is going to stop the bank from lending you the money, or because your creditor or whatever is going on could cause the unit to be foreclosed on, or your creditors to come in on you, and it's going to affect you.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you for
Things
that.
like this, we don't look at it as an individual or at an individual level.
Exactly.
We look at it as a whole. So it doesn't matter if you're paying your maintenance and the other 900 people in the building, or even seven or 20 is not paying. It's going to affect you.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally, and thank you. I'm glad you're able to kind of, and I'm glad you're here, right? Because most of the time, I don't have anyone to kind of go off of to really break down these reports. So we looked at cash on cash return and we learned what that is about. So now look at it now. So our projected cash on cash return was 9.23%. The actual was only 7.9, right? Let's see what happened. The total revenue, you see what the total operating expenses, our net operating income, see what our net income was, occupancy rates. And these are just notes that I wrote. So CBRE, we know that, continues to market the property. We are working with them to bring in individual doctors as well as a larger medical group. Remember, this is a medical facility. And as a property manager, you are responsible for creating this document. You're going to create this document based off of the financials and everything else. Let's dive.
Before you move on, you see that the last item, occupancy rate, that's also very important to the bank. And
yes.
That incredibly important. If the occupancy rate falls below a certain level, then it diminishes your income and it diminishes your whatever you're able to bring in. So that's important. Another thing we do, and this part is for large residential units. We look at the level of ownership versus the level of rental. So you see, if you have a co-op building and you have say 120 residents, and it is like 100% capacity, but most of it, or a large proportion of it is rental or are renters, they're not going to lend in that co-op or that condo building as well. Because renters is the train of thought that renters treat the building or treat the property different from owners. It's not necessarily true, but that's how the bank look at it.
Well, thank you for that. Again, great, amazing points. So let's go on down to what's called the variance report. So this is where your financial savvy comes in, as far as when you're creating these variance reports tell a big story, right? So for us in this property, anything that's more than a 3% swing, so higher or lower, you have to explain, right? And a variance basically is you budgeted for something, and that number is vastly different from what you budgeted. So why? So for example, let's look at, let's look at where it says utilities, heating oil. So the budget for heating oil was zero. It was nothing. And the actual was $20,000 plus. So the variance is 20,000. Why? That's 100% variance. So where it says footnote, which is number 4, so let's go down to number 4 and see what happened. It says the variance in heating oil is due to the timing of payments from invoices that occurred during the unexpectedly cold winter. But nonetheless, that's a $20,000 bill that wasn't budgeted for. So in this instance, that wasn't good. That should have been budgeted for. So basically, that's what this variance report is. This variance report tells the financial story of why the property is not, of why the property went to projected 9.23% and why it only brought in 7.9%. So that's what this variance report does. You can go through the whole list. HVAC service repair. So in short, in essence, the variance report details every big financial swing, whether it's a good one, whether you saved the money, or whether you lost a lot of money. And as a property manager, you are expected to create these every single quarter and send it to whatever investors or whatever developers that you have that's involved in your deal. The reason why I picked this property, because there are a ton of variances. If you have a lot of variances, that's not good. It's not good to have a lot of variances. Whether, and again, and if you have a company that's publicly traded, and let's say your variances are saving you money, that's not good either, right? Because then that means that you don't know how to properly budget your property, right?
What they look for is consistency.
Yes.
Consistency.
Exactly.
So you said it right. Going in either direction, that's no good. What they look for is consistency. That's what the lender looks for.
Exactly. And that's a great point. So thank you for that. All right. So that was, let me go back to here. We're on page. All right. So we've been over the need to know financial terms, which is good. All right. So working as a property manager, right? So this is really important. So now you come to the point where you say, okay, I want to work as a property manager. And what I will say, there are a lot of steps to that, and there are a lot of nuances to working in the property management field. How do you prepare for your job and networking, right? So one thing I will say is networking is going to be key. So getting to that place and going to different places. So now I know it's tough to really network and we can't physically be around one another. I know it's tough, but they have virtual networking events. I haven't been to any. I'm not sure if you've been to any, Veronica, or if anybody else here has, but I've seen virtual happy hours. I'm not sure how it works like at all. Have you been to any, Veronica? Any of these virtual happy hours?
I used to go to Brooklyn almost every month. We used to go downtown Brooklyn. It was awesome. But since this pandemic now.
I know, yeah. I haven't either. I think I spoke to somebody. They said it's kind of like a big Zoom call, and everybody's kind of drinking on their own. So I'm not sure how that works, but I'm pretty sure it's interesting stuff. So again, landing a property management job, your first thing that you want to do is present your skills and your certification. I think that all of you here have your real estate license. That's why you're here. That is a good start, right? That is a very good start towards jumping into the property management aspect. But also more so than that, remember, if you want to stay as an entrepreneur, you already have a built-in client base, right? Which is your clients already that you sold a home to or that you sold a home for. So you have a built-in client base there already as well. So Leona said that she's hosted a virtual event. So maybe towards the end, Derek could unmute you, because I would really love to hear how those virtual events go. Do I bring my own booze, or how does that work? So I'm interested in seeing how that shakes out. All right. So in reference to education, licenses, and designations are going to be key. So this is where I get excited. So this is good stuff, right? So I'm a big believer in education. I'm a big believer in specific education, right? So I'm pretty sure folks go to college and get education. Somebody will go to college for computer science and they'll come out and they're, doing something completely different. I'm a big believer that once you have found your passion, once you have found your niche, to grow yourself in that. So the first one to the top right in the green is called your RAM, your RAM. That means you're registered in apartment management. And this was a really, really amazing course. And I actually mimicked some of my longer courses that last for 2 months after this. So if you're looking to get a baseline knowledge in affordable housing and property management based in New York City, then the RAM is the way to go. And again, it's registered in apartment management. And one thing that I loved about it, I had an amazing instructor. And you have an end of the year project. And what that does is you have to get together with your group and you all create your own property management company, and you have to present your business idea and objectives. And it's a really good way to kind of dive into property management. And at the end of it, you get a designation. So on your resume, you get to put the fact that you are a RAM, and after your name, you have a RAM designation, which is good. And this is a really good designation to have if you're jumping into the property management field, you know, and if you're looking to kind of shake things up. So that's something good to have as well. Going over to the adjacent to the right of that, to the right top where it says the New York Association of Realty Managers, that's another really good designation here based in New York City. That class was good, and the lady there, Margie Russell, they have these webinars and these meetings. They have these really great physical meetings every month. Not now, obviously, because we're in COVID. But if you're looking to get a designation, also you can start off with that too, with that one as well. Going across from that, going back to the RAM, where it's the CAM, which is the Certified Apartment Manager. That one is a little bit more in depth. So you go through a series of classes, and you go through a series of trainings, and at the end you test out to get your CAM designation. I have here. So going further down to the furthest left, where it says the Real Estate Associates Program. So this one is what Derek and I spoke about earlier. And what that is this. So this program is specifically geared to help minorities, to bridge the gap between minorities and the commercial real estate space, right? Which I think is nothing short of phenomenal. So the program lasts maybe about 3 months, and you meet twice a week. So it's pretty intense. And what you do throughout that time period, you're meeting with folks in front of such as representatives such as McDonald's. You're meeting with the real estate folks of Starbucks and some of these other top-notch companies. And the REIT program has been around for 15, almost 20 years probably. And they have folks that are in so many different industries in the commercial aspect. A lot of people who go through there are property managers. A lot of them are also real estate brokers. But what it does, even more so than the lessons that it teaches you as far as who's teaching these courses, the people. So they're only about 30 or 40 in a cohort at a time. And the selection process is pretty intense, right? So normally they have about 100 to 200 people that apply every year, and they only select about 30 to 40. And I know for me, it was great to be in that program because it's not so much about the stuff that you learn, it's about the relationships that you build with the people that are there. So some of the folks that I went to the REIT program with are good friends of mine now, right? And I remember it was pretty fun because just like, you know, even though you're an adult, you kind of feel like you're back in school again, kind of feel like you're in college. So the classes are in Manhattan, and what we would do after every class, we would go out to a local bar and just have a good time. So it's really fun in a sense that it exposes you to a lot. And my first experience with Hudson Yards, we got a private tour through Hudson Yards, and it was because of the REIT program. So I would suggest anybody to take that, the Real Estate Associates program or course. It's really good. It lasts for about 3 months. All right. So what I'll say is this: you have your real estate license. Obviously, all of you have that on the way. That's a baseline start. So two of the most significant designations here is from IREM. So you'll see that IREM, which is the Institute of Real Estate Management. So the first one is your ARM, right? Your accredited residential manager. That is a really good designation to have. So IREM is the golden standard of property management in the world, right? So if you're looking to really have a leg up, in property management, if you're really looking to do that, I would suggest to take the ARM course. I think you only need maybe about a year experience in real estate in general. You take the courses and you kind of go from there. After you've done that for a while, then you go to your CPM. And both are really good courses. I like both of them. Your CPM is basically the it factor in property management. You become a certified property manager. And once you get that designation, you can then, if you want to stay in real estate sales or brokerage, it's good to know that your clients know that you are a certified property manager. If you're looking to dive deeper in the property management arena, folks are going to be looking like, wow, all right, you're a CPM, you're a certified property manager, and that speaks volumes about who you are and how seriously you take the industry. All right, going on to right here where it says the CCIM institution. So that is a really, really, really intense designation to be a CCMI, and that focuses on asset management and financials. So most of the time, I would say that, for that CCMI, you're a high-level asset manager, you're a vice president of asset management, and now you've really taken in the asset management and the financials of an actual property, all right? So I'll say, look, my progression, and I'll just, tell you all what my progression was. My progression was I got the I got the NIARM certification first. Then after that, I got the RAM. Then after I got the RAM, I got my ARM. The ARM was great. And then in between me being a CPM candidate, I took the Real Estate Associates program. Actually, the first one I forgot was my real estate license. So I left that one out. So I had the RAM, I had the ARM, and then I took the Real Estate Associates program, and then I got the CPM, which is great. So, once you get those designations, it really shows folks that that you're entrenched in this industry and that you kind of want to be a shaker in the industry as well. All right. All right. So I am very big on industry events. And again, unfortunately, COVID-19 really affected that. So for me, I like wine and I like shrimp. So whenever I go out, I'm always looking for networking events that have both. So for me, these are some events that I've been to personally. So the Young Real Estate Professionals of New York, this is a great, I guess, they have monthly meetups. They're mostly based in Manhattan. And and it's always free, and they have food. If you come early enough, you get free food. And then I'll tell you what, I've met so many people through the Young Real Estate Professionals of New York networking events. It was really great. So whenever things do return to to some normalcy, I would suggest going to these events. These are really, really great events to expand your career. Whether you want to be a property manager, whether you want to stay in sales, is really great. So ICSC is the Institution for Council Shopping Centers. So this is the creme de la creme of retail and shopping centers as far as having a membership. They have the big ICSC events in Las Vegas and also here in New York as well. These are phenomenal events that you can go to. Again, your net worth is your net worth. So make sure that you make networking a part of that. The Biz Now events, I really love. I started going to these, and they're moderate, and they're good price. The Biz Now events they run anywhere from about $80 to $100, but they're really worth it. I've met some amazing people there at some of these Biz Now events. It's been worth every bit of little $80 to $100. So if you can, when things return back to some type of normalcy, put that into your budget. Meetup. Go ahead, Veronica. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying I'm familiar with this one.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I really like it. And again, they normally have good breakfast there too. So, so I always like that. So going to Meetup, I remember before when I was in between property management jobs, when I was transitioning, I found Meetup to be very, very good. And I'm pretty sure most of you know Meetup from, you can have an array of different meetups for chess, for games, for whatever, I would go to the real estate meetups, and I found a huge value in those meetups. And again, a lot of these folks I still speak to now. That's why kind of what we spoke about, having a CRM, that customer relationship manager is so important, because once you go to all these events, it's going to be impossible for you to remember Joe from Jim. It's going to be impossible. So dumping them into your CRM is going to be how you're able to stay in contact with everyone at all times, right? In these events, the New York Commercial Real Estate Summit, so it takes place every year. These are a little bit more on the more expensive side, so those tickets are like $200-300. They're good. They're good. They're good. They're decent. I'm not sure if it's worth that price tag, as opposed to going to BizNow, which is a lot lower, or going to Young Real Estate Professionals of New York. But they do have a hefty price tag. And again, not 100% sure, depending on who you are, if it's worth that price tag. But they're still good events nonetheless, to meet folks and to gain some knowledge and to meet some folks there, all right? Derek, you have anything to add about industry events? I know you go to a lot of industry events. Well, I just was telling them that the New York, the one that JLL, I said it's decent, and these real estate summits, they're expensive. They're like $300-400 tickets.
Yes.
But I was saying that for me, I like the BizNow events, like Veronica likes, because the price is a lot lower, and to me, it's the same folks and the same impact.
The quality is good. Like BizNow doesn't get the attendance it should. Those are really, but they're too good, right? Nobody wants to hear the shit almost.
I know, and what BizNow does is send you newsletter. They're on top of their game in terms of information. It's really, really good BizNow.
So like, if you love this, if you're really into this, do it.
Yes.
If you're
the information they give you is really, it's useful, very useful.
And like YREPNY, I see you have YREPNY there. I've been going to YREPNY events for years. Young Real Estate Professionals in New York. Those are good events. They don't have as many as some of the other organizations, but those are good events. I would.
Well, Derek, well, in 2018, I think 2017, 2018 is when I discovered YREPNY. And when I used to go, man, the joint was packed. It used to be packed in there.
Right, and I think it's because they don't do them very often. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they do like 2 or 3 a year, maybe.
Well, they started picking it up. So I know right before the world ended, they started picking up a lot. Yeah, and I used to go. The wife was always like, "Man, you're going out there again?" I was like, "Yeah, they got free shrimp if you come in the first hour." Right?
So, they're actually good. They are very good events, and I think it feels like a lot of people don't know about YREPNY.
No, a lot of people.
They are good events, and it's not just 23-year-old people. You know, like. I'm a little up there, but I still.
You had to think about it for a second.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna say it, but I'm gonna say they are good events. ICSC. I mean, I've been to ICSC in Vegas. It's not that interesting. You know, like ICSC is for a very certain type of person. Like again, this is a class for property management, so ICSC is very important.
Yes, exactly.
Not so much. But in this sphere, definitely ICSC is a good one. The one in New York is still in New York. It's good. Again, I was going to say the Property Shark event is actually pretty good. The Property Shark networking party, because everybody friggin' uses Property Shark. So you're getting people from every aspect of the industry there. So you actually make good contacts, right?
That's true.
You're going to get much free food. They're not going to give you free booze. You're going to get free food, but you're going to have anybody you want to meet at that party. But like me personally, I'm a member of the Asian Real Estate Association. Can't you tell? The National Hispanic Association of Realtors. I'm in those organizations. Like I definitely encourage people to join those things if you are or aren't of that group. They're great networking opportunities, great business opportunities, and there's always somebody who's going to be in need of your services. Property management, there's a lot of big developers that have people in their staff that are in these organizations because they want to get to know the people. So there's going to be somebody in the sphere you want to be in those organizations as well. So I would include those well, like any of these, because like again, tribalism is a thing, right? But still, that like I don't have to be Asian to be an ARIA. I'm on the board. I'm not just a member. I'm on the board for ARIA. I'm on the board for the Hispanic Association. And like the Hispanic organization, they're having their big, what would normally be a national event in San Diego, is virtual now. And they got some big heavy hitters there. There's going to be some interesting stuff there. So like a lot of these organizations also will have an educational component that's available to you as well. So you get networking and information as a part of your deal as well.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you. And one thing I'll say for everybody on here, something that if nobody has done, and it's something that I don't find a lot of people do because maybe I'm just a political nerd. I would always tell everybody that here, I'm pretty sure lives in New York City, find out where your local community board is and attend.
Exactly. We had such a good conversation last week. I loved it. You know, again, because I love this stuff. Like I can talk. We're geeks when it comes to real estate. You know, that not everyone's
exactly.
You know, but it's true. You say it all the time, and I'm really glad we got to have that conversation because it allowed me to see. Yes, get involved in your communities because there's a lot that you can actually do as a real estate professional or someone who wants to be even more of a real estate professional, have more of an impact. Get involved in your local community boards.
Yeah, and as we spoke, what happens, especially from affordable housing deals and from deals in general, right? If there's a big project that's going up in your community, that developer needs community board sign-off. So they have to come through the community board to kind of say, all right, cool, the community board signs off on this, and that's part of their packet that goes to, you know, if it's in Brooklyn, that goes to Eric Adams' office, right? So, and you don't have to necessarily join the community board and be on the board, but at least being there and going and getting to know the people that's there is so important. And a lot of
it is. And as minorities, a lot of us don't do it. And I say to, you know, when I'm doing workshops, I said that's the reason why the boat is, I've always missed us. Because you know what, we never involve ourselves. When Bed-Stuy was turning into what it is, we didn't realize because we never got involved in the community boards. We never did anything. I live in Crown, so I know what's going on. You know what happened? After it was done, Bed-Stuy had already changed. People who wanted to do a lot of investment got properties real cheap. And there are people who actually lived in Bed-Stuy for 20, 30, 40 years that just never got enough.
But Veronica, Crown Heights too. Like Crown Heights has changed dramatically.
Calm it down, Brooklyn. Calm it down, Brooklyn. Yeah. It's true though. To your point, like people act like we don't have a say. People act like, oh, you just live here and the city does stuff around you. That's not how it works. You can be involved. You can be part of the decision-making process. They have to get permission to change certain things in an area to build certain things, and you can be a part of that process.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. So, you know, and as a property manager, sometimes, you know, and here's the thing that I love about the property management industry. It is you function as an entrepreneur, but within a certain setting. And here's what I mean. So for me, I don't really necessarily have anybody telling me, hey, you need to go to this property this time and this day and do this and do that. You're expected to get the job done, right? Here's what you need to do, get the job done. So last week when I was in Boston, I went down to the local police department because we have an issue with, you know, people, you know, vandalizing stuff at one of our complexes. Nobody told me to do that. The owner didn't say, hey, I need to go down to the police department. But, you know, and again, the reason why I say that property management is the perfect avenue for a lot of real estate agents, because property management has its own entrepreneurial undertone and foundation as well, right? And a lot of us jump into real estate, especially sales and brokerage, because we don't want a traditional 9 to 5. We're entrepreneurs. We like to kind of flex. So property management offers that as well, especially now, right? Especially now where we're all working from home. No one tells a property manager, hey, I need you at the property at a certain time. You have to go based on your schedule and based on how you can move. So
until that pipe breaks at 2 a.m.
Yeah, listen to that pipe. But guess what? That pipe breaks. Sometimes you have to be out there.
Yeah.
But again, that's how entrepreneur is, and people think that as an entrepreneur, you're like, man, I got it made. I'm gonna work. You know, I ain't gonna work, but you're gonna work harder, but for yourself. And Derek, you know this very well.
It's about hustle, plain and simple. And you're right, because like that's why I think this appeals to people that are already in real estate. You already get the idea of I want to manage myself. You have to be able to manage yourself. You cannot succeed in either one of these industries if you don't, because you are left to your own devices. And if you're like, well, ain't nobody gonna make me do it, it's not gonna get done, and you're not gonna have a job.
Bingo. Yeah, that's what I'm
Exactly.
saying. So yes, nobody's gonna make you do anything, but if you don't get done, you're like, yeah, thank you for your services here. We're gonna go in another direction. You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Yeah, one or two more slides. All right, and now in another couple minutes, I'll leave a couple minutes for questions and stuff. So here's, just industry news and articles. So us as property management professionals, it's always important. Real estate professionals, always important to be on top of what's going on. So I would say the three that I personally have delivered to my house is the Real Estate Weekly, the New York Real Estate Journal, and the Real Deal. These are, so I'll show you. So if you can see, this is the real, did it come up? Is it coming up? So this is the Real Deal. Can you see it? Really?
It's got some green in it, so it's always going to get faded into the background.
I know.
These are the green, yeah.
Yeah, I know. All right, so when it comes to the Real Deal, when it comes to the New York Real Estate Journal, the Commercial Observer is good as well, but affordable is the Real Estate Weekly, the New York Real Estate Journal, and I think the Real Deal now is about maybe 150, 175 for the year or something like that. It's not bad. But
And yeah, they have a virtual thing that you can get as well.
But
with the Real Deal.
Yeah, I like to flip the pages, man.
Yeah, it's a nice. It's a good magazine. Like I know the owner of the damn magazine. I know the quality that goes into it. I know some of the writers. I know some of the salespeople. Like I've worked closely with that magazine for a while, and I have a lot of respect for them. They're on top of things, and they've handled COVID very well.
Very well, yes.
Very well,
Yeah, and what I will say, their response is actually pretty good. So I'm one of those magazine readers that if you tell me my magazine is going to be in a mailbox by the 5th and it's the 6th, I'm calling and emailing like a crazy person. And they actually respond.
That's the entrepreneurial spirit right there.
Yep, exactly. But they're really good. So one thing I'll tell everybody, regardless of industry, if you're in real estate, period, you need to have the Real Deal should be kind of like your real estate Bible. You should be reading that religiously. And same thing for the Real Estate Weekly as well. I really like the Real Estate Weekly. They went online. All these magazines are going online as well for obvious reasons, but it's so important to kind of get in tune with the industry. You have to read and know what's happening and know what's going on. So it's important. All right. Then my last slide before questions is probably my favorite slide. So this is a kind of like a compilation of books that I put together that should be immediate reading. So the first one is Think and Grow Rich. That is probably the best book I've ever read, hands down. That book will change the way you look at everything. It'll change the way you think. It'll change your mindset about success and about life. It really is a super powerful book. I have, I mark it up just so I can go back to the book at different times. It's a really good book. Obviously, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki is a classic. We speak a lot about networking and people. So How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is a short read. It is an amazing book. You should be able to finish that book in 3 days. It's an amazing book. And if you couple that with How to Be a Master Networker, so How to Be a Master Networker is a little older, so they don't talk about YouTube and Instagram and everything, but the concept still applies, and it's a phenomenal book. A recent book that I read is How to Be a Good Employee, and I read it, and I think that every entrepreneur should read this book, and here's why. It really summed up from the employee aspect what your employer looks for in a good employee. So if you read that as an entrepreneur, you can start to understand just the dynamics between employer and employee a little bit better. And I think it's important. And for me, I will say, I know everybody wants to be a boss. Everybody wants to be a shot caller at one point in time. Don't get me wrong, we all do. But I think before you can lead, it's important that you at least follow. So if you have been an employee and you understand the good mechanisms about it, like I have friends that say, man, I can't keep the job, or they fired me, but you show up late to work every day, right? And even as an entrepreneur, if you're a real estate agent, it's all about kind of like your attitude. And the book talks a lot about your attitude. So some people, they work at McDonald's and they hate it. And they come to McDonald's every day with that mindset. I hate it. And guess what? that shows through your actions. So
Yep.
basically the book says while you're there, whatever your situation is, you give it 100% and you do the job that you signed up to do. If you filled out the application to take the job, do it. Do what you said that you're going to do. And then if another opportunity comes along, then so be it. So I think it's a good book and it puts things into perspective. The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, it talks about a financial blueprint that we all should have. So it talks about why certain people in their life, why they only make $50,000 throughout their whole life, because their blueprint is programmed for $50,000. But once you change your financial blueprint and the way you think about money, then you could recalibrate your financial mind to be at, $250,000 a year. And then it's kind of getting to those levels. So The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind is a really good book to read. And also, and last but certainly not least, is probably my favorite book. And even though it says The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, it is not. It is about real estate and being a real estate agent, but it is about life in general. And this book basically knocked me off my socks. It is a phenomenal must-read book that I think everybody who's in real estate needs to read. If you haven't read that, you are doing yourself injustice on reading that. So those are the books I think that everybody should read, and that's all I have.
Yeah, I mean, I would. That's a solid list because I would say honestly, the top 3 books that are on that everybody says read this if you want to do well in real estate is Rich Dad Poor Dad, How to Win Friends and Influence People,
Very good.
and The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. You got to have those 3, right? And so at least those 3. So
At least. And don't get me wrong, I have like a ton more.
yeah, exactly. Of course,
I have a ton more books, but these books here, I think will help everybody along in their real estate career and just change your mindset and how you look at things. So I think it's important.
Mindset's important because you have to, like you said, you have to be a go-getter and a self-starter. Not everybody is naturally. So if you're not, you got to figure out how to be if you want to succeed in this industry or in property management. So
I
like that for sure.
Yeah, and also in real estate, right? It talks about mind share. So the reason why the Millionaire Real Estate Agent is so important, it says at any given time, Derek, whether it's you, Veronica, at any given time, if you were to ask somebody right now, hey, name me 3 real estate agents, most of the time, and we know hundreds and thousands of real estate agents, but your mind share will only allow you maybe 2, maybe 3, right? So the fight to win that mind share in people's minds is important, and that's how you're going to succeed, right? And you win mind share by what's called touches, right? How many times do you touch people through a newsletter, through a handwritten letter? Do they see you networking, right? So it's all about winning that mind share. When you win that mind share in people's minds, it's just like a commercial, right? The commercial with the, I think it's a Corona. Snoop Dogg is dancing on a commercial. He's on the beach. I don't know if you've seen that new commercial.
Yeah.
But I don't even like it. But they're winning mind share because whenever I think of a beer, I'm like, oh, that's super commercial that Snoop Dogg is in, right? So the Millionaire Real Estate Agent really talks about leadership, and it talks about mind share and winning that mind share battle with your clients.
Yeah. And it's even harder now because you got to compete with the $1 million listing. Like, oh, Ryan Serhant. Like, no. Like a person you could actually
That's true. But guess what? He's winning a crazy amount of mind share.
He's got a new company out too. He's going now. He started his own brokerage. It's also a media company, a multimedia company. He's not.
Again, so having a show like that, and people may not even necessarily like him, but they're like, you know what? I have this $8 million condo that I want to sell. Let me call him because I know he did it. That's called winning mind share.
Exactly right. Yep. Absolutely. So do you want to turn it over for questions, or let's do it. Okay. All right, guys. This is it. That was a pretty thorough presentation. First of all, thank you very much, Tywan. That was really, really good. Thank you, Veronica, for joining us.
Excellent. Very good.
I had to step off to take a phone call, but I'm sure it went very well for the last 10 minutes that I missed.
No, we faltered, man. We needed you.
It fell apart. Yeah, anybody who's got a question. Oh, Francis has a question. Well, I see Francis's hand up. So I'm going to allow you to talk so you can ask your question directly. Give me 1 second for that. There you go, Francis. You can ask away. Oh, Francis is muted. You can unmute and ask your question. This is getting orange juice. All right. So I think we're good. Yoshi, I got your license number. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, anybody who didn't put their license number in yet, this is your last chance. Yeah. So I've collected all the license number that were put in so far. If you have your license number, make sure also that you include the name as it appears on your license if you have not already done that.
Yeah. Somebody did ask for my contact information. I was just typing it in.
Oh, yeah, go ahead and put it. Yeah, both of you guys, can you put your information in the chat so people can reach out to you?
Yeah, I was just doing that.
Yeah, so just guys, just so you know, I am giving our humble hosts here your contact information, so they will reach out to you. You'll actually get your certificate from either Veronica or Rajan at Meadowbrook. So so I'll be creating those and getting your certificates out to you, but it'll actually be distributed by either Veronica or Rajan. So keep your eyes on your inbox for those. Tywan, if people usually want to have the slides. If you want to share them, I suggest you give them a hoop to jump through, just because. So,
What's off the timing to those slides?
But yeah, exactly. That's right. So you got to earn the slides.
No.
So keep your eye on your inbox for emails from Tywan and Veronica. If you do have questions, they're going to have their contact information in the chat box as well, so you can reach out to them directly with your questions.
Sure. Any questions? No questions?
A lot of thank yous. Yeah, when you get the excellence and thank yous, you know you've done a good job.
No, thank you.
You know they're tired.
But yeah,
either that or they're saying we need to get off this thing.
Exactly. We wore them out. No, this is good. This was really, really good. And yeah, people are definitely.
Rebecca, nice to meet you as well, Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca's great peoples. Great peoples.
Yep. It was really good. I really learned a lot. So really did. Very.
Oh, yeah, property management is my passion. I've been at it for a little while. So and thank you, Derek, for the invite. But I do love property management a lot, and I'm an agent. I'm a broker, so I understand the transition or the natural progression from agent to property manager as well.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. And that's the important thing, is it's a possible thing. You see it now. I don't want to say a lot, but I think it is a natural progression. I would agree that it's a natural
progression. Of course. Yeah, because after you sell somebody a building, and or you're involved in a transaction that has 20 units, and maybe someone doesn't have property management, or even somebody does, they're always looking to change that up. So that may be it. So an opportunity may present itself as well too. And again, for property management, the excellent thing about it, the only thing you need is you already have it, right? You just have to think. You don't need any special skill or any special tool. You don't need to learn. You don't need to sing good or dance well. You don't need any of that, right? The only thing you really need is to critically think and be a problem solver.
There you go. That's it. All right, so Tywan, I put your information in the chat again, just because a lot of thank yous came through. So I wanted to make sure people still had the chance to get it, so I'll put it back in there.
I can tell you, Brian, you can put 516-603-2588, my phone.
603, sorry again?
516-603-2588. Tywan, I never wanted to be a real estate agent, but I could have been a property manager. If you spoke for one more hour, I would have been converted.
Let's go. Let's run it
back. One more hour. I would have been good.
Well, again, the good thing about property management is it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon, right? More people,
I'm glad you said that. I meant to ask you what you think of the future of property management.
It's going to be a bigger focus on residential, like always, but it's also going to be a shift to industrial. And here's why. Because the places like Amazon and all these other places, they're going to just need larger warehouses to store this stuff, right? So Amazon, Amazon, they may own.
But they've got the robots to take care of that stuff, though.
Yeah, that.
But Derek, there goes my hour. There's the extra hour.
Yeah, right. But Derek, see, the robots, they take care of the shipping and sending, right? You still need a physical person with the mind to take care of what's leaking, to get the roof inspection, to fill violations with the city, to kind of go. You still need a group to manage the actual physical asset.
But how lucrative, some states, I'm sure, you know, property management will not do well in, you know, some states, I'm sure it does.
Kansas probably doesn't have a huge property management industry.
Not true, you know, but you know what Kansas does have plenty of?
Really? Yeah.
Guess what? You know what they do have plenty of? Student housing. And you need, because they have a lot of college, so you need property managers with the expertise. Listen, anything that you throw at me, I can say no. I got it. No. So
there goes the hour. I'm done.
I'm good. I know what I'm with.
So think about that, right? So in a lot of these smaller towns, like in the Midwest, they may not have much else going on, but they have a lot of colleges, right? You know, you have Kansas State, you have K-State, you have Washburn, Pittsburgh State University, you have Joplin University, you have so many universities, and each school, even the smallest like D2 schools, they have 20,000 students. Half of those students are living off campus and off-campus housing. A smart institutional investor will buy up some of that, and they'll say, you know what, I have 30 units, I can't manage it, so I need somebody to manage it for me. Right? So it's always opportunities in property management no matter where you go.
Yeah. I mean, look, Columbia owned half of Harlem for generations.
Thank you.
Know? Yeah.
Think about that. Think about that, right? And actually now they're owning a little bit more than that because they're doing some development deals up there too now, right? So,
absolutely.
You know, so even in, and then also too, remember you have senior care facilities that property managers. So whether you specialize in senior care, right? So you're dealing with that. So every piece of, you know, every building that you see in Manhattan has a property manager. And that's the thing about the property management business. You know, leaks and stuff just don't get fixed by themselves.
No, you're right. As a New Yorker, we only think of New York and how New York functions. That's a fault with New Yorkers. I'm telling you, everybody else, New Yorkers come first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Come below that. Right. I mean, New York take the first 5 slots.
But there's a big, but listen, there's a big world out there.
That's what I'm saying. Now that you say, that's what I'm saying. You know.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's a big world.
Thank you, guys.
No problem.
It's a pleasure.
Derek.
Appreciate it. And Tywan and all the other participants, you know, were silent, but we saw your notes and notation, and I'm grateful and honored to have been a part of this forum.
Yes.
Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody. Really appreciate everybody's time. You'll be hearing from all of us soon. So keep your eye on your inboxes for future things from Tywan, from Veronica, from Charter Real Estate School as well. Thank everybody. Go get some dinner, go to the bathroom. All of you guys have a good evening.
All right. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. All right.